across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning to you. I hope you are still tucked up in bed with a nice brew and not outside in the cold and the dark and the grey and the drizzle. But if you are, you know, chin up, it's England. Right, wow, what headlines are we enjoying today? Rachel Reeves, you naughty little liar. I mean, it is so egregious to turn around and barefaced lie about there being a massive black hole in the economy for all sorts of various reasons, from Donald Trump to Putin to Brexit to Lord knows what. Oh, there's a big black hole, I'm going to have to tax everyone to the hilt. And it was a barefaced lie. She did it because she wanted to throw some more benefits at people just to please her rabidly socialist backbenchers. It is absolutely disgusting. She has to go. Come on, like, you know, it's a bit like when they said, oh, there's weapons of mass destruction and started a war. What is it with the Labour Party? You can't invent stuff and tell the party something that is just total fantasy in order to then do something deeply egregious. You can't. Rachel, go. Go now, please. These people, they literally have no moral compass. I'm beginning to think, genuinely, that they're wicked. Because if you actually look at the last year and a half and the things that the Labour Party have done, so they lied about this black hole. I'm pretty sure they lied at the beginning about that original black hole to give all the people in the public sector pay rises. Because I remember when there was an FOI sent to the Treasury by the Financial Times saying, look, explain this £22 billion black hole that the Conservatives left. They couldn't. So I reckon that was a lie as well. Then they're trying to get rid of basically justice by scrapping the jury system. That's mental. Well, we're not going to have juries anymore. We're just going to have all their leftist matrix chambers, activist judges deciding our fate. And we know what our fate is: to be put in prison because we wrote something on Facebook, for crying out loud. Never forget that. And the lies about Southport, lies again. Then what else are they up to? Oh, I know. Let's encourage old people to go for a bit of euthanasia. That's really dark. What are you doing? That wasn't in your manifesto. And then, oh, you can abort babies at full term. And then, oh, look at all these bits of islands and territories that are, you know, British. Let's give those away and pay other people for it. And meanwhile, let's pour concrete and cement down all the oil wells so we actually basically have the potential of severe blackouts in about 4 years' time. And let's go and cosy up to Xi Jinping of China. Every 5 seconds, some minister's on a plane over to Beijing. What is wrong with these people? I mean, seriously, they're wicked. And I don't mean that in a sort of 90s cool way. They're not okay. Oh, I've had enough. I think most of the British public have had enough. Let's speak now to Wendy Morton, MP, who's the Shadow Foreign Minister. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Morning.
Rachel Reeves telling that lie. And it's a lie. We know it's a lie. It's astonishing. It's jaw-dropping.
I think jaw-dropping, astonishing, disgraceful. I mean, words either fail me, or there's a whole string of words I could use to how I feel. But I think it's just deeply disgusting. I mean, how can the public trust the Chancellor now after what she has done? Personally, I think it's time she went. She did lie. From all that I have seen, she has lied to the country. The OBR have made it very, very clear now that she knew on the 17th of September what the lie of the state of the land was financially. And she's had individuals worried about what was coming in the budget. Businesses that I've been talking to have been worried about what's coming in the budget. That's on top of pensioners, farmers. And this is from the party who said that they were here to help working people. Her budget does not do that. Her budget has been quite simply about lying her way to enable her to appease her backbenchers. And it says a lot about the state of the Labour Party's leadership as well as that of the Chancellor.
I mean, I don't fancy the chances of her going at all. I think she'll dig her heels in. I think she'll come up with even more lies to cover up the lie. And I reckon by the end of the week, she's still going to be in position. What do you reckon?
Well, who knows? I think it's important that we all keep the pressure up and actually make sure that the general public know what has been going on when it comes to the budget. It was disgraceful over the last few weeks, as if leak after leak after leak weren't bad enough. Just before the budget itself, that OBR report was leaked onto the Gov website, then it was taken down. And then as the day has gone on, and the whole story of her budget has been unravelling. And she's, the story of the black hole that didn't exist. And why? So it's quite simple. So it's all been about Rachel Reeves trying to keep her backbenchers quiet and to create, more benefits. But it's working people that are having to pay for that. So I come back to my central point: is how on earth can we expect people to trust the Chancellor?
In my mind, it sort of shines a different light on the OBR sticking the budget up online an hour early, because she did that press conference in the morning, didn't she, where she invented this big old lie, saying to everyone, well, it's not going to be good news because of the black hole, because everyone else's fault and not mine. And then, oh, look, the OBR, who know this to be an absolute stinker, suddenly published stuff before the budget. And I wonder now whether someone inside the OBR was saying, we're not going to let you get away with this.
Well, I suppose, there should be an inquiry into what happened, but we are where we are. But the truth of the matter remains, how can we trust this Chancellor? And she has now brought forward £30 billion. That's an eye-watering amount of money, Alex, in terms of a package of tax rises. And who's going to pay? It's going to be the people that get up day in, day out and go out to work. They're the working people of this country, the very people that Labour said that they would stand up for. They're breaking their manifesto promise yet again, and I think they're treating the British public as fools, and the British public are not.
I can't think of one decent thing that this government has done. It just feels like every single decision they make is anti-British. It really, really does. I cannot wait for them to go.
Well, I totally agree with you on that. The only good thing I can think of that they did was they U-turned on the winter fuel allowance. They listened to people like us who said that this was unfair. But again, imagine a Labour government that brought forward the abolition of a winter fuel payment, which was actually helping again the very people who worked hard all their lives but needed that bit of extra help. Unbelievable, but at least we managed to get that one overturned. Look at what they're doing to the farmers, the very people who put our food on the table. For anyone who's having turkey, sprouts, carrots at Christmas, who's going to be producing that at the moment? The farmers. But no, Labour would rather tax them out of existence.
Yeah, they seem to basically be going after all the things a government is supposed to protect. They're going after our agriculture, they're going after our energy efficiency, they're going after our sovereign territory, they're going after the money being earned by regular Brits, and essentially giving it away largely to big families with foreign-born parents, because if you look at the data, the vast majority of families with more than 2 children happen to have a parent who wasn't born in Britain. I just don't understand whose side they're on. Do you reckon they're going to get hammered as well? Despite the fact that they're just horrific and doing what they like, seemingly with impunity, they are facing a lot of challenges on the left. The left is fracturing, isn't it? We've got the launch of Your Party, which apparently is going to change its name this weekend. You've got the sort of weird over-promotion of that snaggle-toothed strange man from the Green Party, the hypnotist, Zach Polanski. At least one thing us sensible-minded patriots can hold on to is the idea that the left wing are sort of fracturing into loads of weird little clans.
I think we are seeing a fracturing of the left. But what I see day in, day out when I'm in the House of Commons and I look at those government benches, I often see glum faces, but it does feel like, it's that old phrase, it's the tail that's wagging the dog. It's the backbenchers who are actually putting huge amounts of pressure under Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves to get the policies that they want. And we've seen it again this week. And I think, people must be wondering this wasn't what we voted for.
No, it definitely was not. And if people had any idea what this wicked government were going to do, they would be nowhere near the levers of power. Wendy, thank you ever so much for joining me this morning. Listen, come on, you've got to let me know what you think about this. Because on the surface, it sort of looks like a bit of a dry and dull story, doesn't it? Oh, well, you know, the OBR said one thing, she said another, la, 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 budget and economics. But the point is very clear. The woman barefaced lied to the entire country in order to nick our money, to save her own skin, to make up some sort of unnecessary extreme socialist policy so she wouldn't get in trouble with the psychotic Marxists who were in her party. And in order to do that, she literally stood there and told a big, fat, smelly stinker to all of us. It's disgusting. She has to go. She has to go. All right, we're going to take a short break. If you want to let me know your thoughts on this story today. The number to call is 03444991000. It's your normal network rate. I'd love to have a chit-chat with some of you. That is also the number for WhatsApp. You can leave me an angry voice note about this and we'll play it out to everyone so we can delight in your ire. 87222 is the number if you'd rather send me a text message. If you're going to do that, you've got to write the word talk before you send your message. Otherwise, it's probably going to be gobbled up by Rachel Reeves and used to sort of give more benefits to people who probably don't even have a right to live in the United Kingdom. We are on X at talkTV, and I'm back just after this.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, Hello, welcome back. Do you know, we're sitting here trying to do this Time Saturday quiz together in the gallery. Some very creative answers. But here's a question for you, all of you listening. In 1942, the Dutch ship HMLMS Abraham Creinsen became famous for escaping from Java disguised as what? I mean, how do you disguise a ship? I'm actually looking forward to looking at the answers for that one, because the answer is I don't know.
Maybe they put a wig on the bow or something.
I thought you were going to puke in your mouth then. You sort of started your sentence and decided you didn't want to.
I couldn't be heard. Maybe they could put a wig on the bow or something like that.
A wig?
I don't know.
Well, this is HMS Michael Fabricant escaping out of...
Brilliant.
Oh, right. Here we go. Let's talk about this. Oh, by the way, welcome into the studios the brilliant Phil Dave, who normally is behind that glass, dictating to us like a little monster.
On the right level of desperation, I come to this side of the glass as well.
There he is, and Matthew Hulbert. You look like you should be called Matthew Hulbert.
Oh, that makes me sound posher, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that probably is of French origin, that name.
Mathieu Hulbert.
Mathieu Hulbert.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah,
I like that.
I'm
going to use that from now on.
Mathieu Hulbert. Maybe Mathieu Hulbert is the answer to the question, which French novelist attacked Napoleon III in his 1852 pamphlet, Napoléon le Petit? Oh, that must be Mathieu Hulbert. Right, let's talk about some news. Or we could just talk rubbish if you like. Don't know. OK, Rachel Reeves. Well, she is someone who talks rubbish, isn't she? This is, Phil, every now and then you have a story and you think, this is massive, and yet somehow it kind of doesn't feel it. It's both.
Well, I tell you why.
Huge,
I tell you why. But I tell you why it doesn't feel massive is because, if my memory serves right, people on all sides of the political spectrum were saying right from day one, there is no £20 billion black hole. What are you talking about? And let us not forget that one of the first things that Rachel Reeves did as Chancellor was pay off the trade unions to the tune of, about £16 billion. So we can account for £16 billion.
Yeah, I want to know about that £22 billion black hole when they first came into power, because I was saying earlier, I remember the Financial Times FOI'd the Treasury and goes like, all right, show us your workings, and they're like, yeah, no, you're not going to have that. And it's like, did that exist either, or was that just a way of paying the public sector to keep in the pockets of the union? What do you think, Mathieu?
Well, I think that this doesn't look good for Rachel Reeves, does it? But the trouble is, because of what Labour had said in the election campaign, they couldn't then come into government and say, oh, actually, there is no black hole, and so all the reasoning that we've just given you for why you've elected us and chucked out the Tories, well, actually, none of that counts anymore. And so I think this looks very bad, and I agree with you. I'm amazed it's not a bigger story than it is. I mean, she shouldn't survive this, should she?
Well, no, she shouldn't, but do you think she will? Because the feeling I get with this government, it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter that Sir Keir Starmer turned around and said, no, nothing to see here with Southport, definitely not a terrorist attack, and then threw people in prison for basically speculating, and then basically, I think as well, prejudiced the entire system by calling these people far-right and dangerous before the court cases, did these weird televised kangaroo courts, threw people in clink for putting posts on social media, and he's still there. I mean, what is going on? I feel like we're being ruled by a crazy tyrant.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I think that, but what I do think is that I don't think you can trust a word that comes out of their mouths, because from whatever perspective, so, I'm on the left of the political spectrum, but even from my perspective, Starmer now has this indignation about child poverty, which I share with him, but where was that a year ago? If that was so important to him, where was it a year ago when he said he couldn't afford to lift the two-child benefit cap? So wherever you're coming from, left, right or centre, this government has betrayed you.
Also, I can't help but wonder that if child poverty really was such a big deal for Sir Keir Starmer and his delightful bunch of cronies, then why is it they've blown so many millions of pounds on people who are breaking into this country? Surely they should say, well, actually, do you know what? This is a ridiculous way of spending money. We've got children who live in this country, who are born in this country, who need state help, and we have to provide that help to them. Would that not have been a better way of spending taxpayers' money?
Well, you would think, wouldn't you? I mean, I just think that this government has done some really horrific things, which, frankly, I'm just making a list here so we can do this together.
Have you got enough paper there?
Which is going to ruin the country for a very very long time. Some of the decisions they're making are going to be irreversible. So let me look at a few of them. I mean, the prison for free speech thing has set a really dangerous legal precedent. I hope it will never happen again, but that to me was crazy. You know, other people around the world were looking at that going, whoa, what's going on in Britain? You're living under some sort of evil regime.
Yeah, but it's two-tier, though, because there are plenty of people who come up with offensive things that I, as a Jewish person, find hideously offensive, and yet they're still walking the streets. That's okay.
I know.
It's two-tier.
But then also you've got handing away British sovereign territory. Again, lies. Right. The whole thing about the Chagos Island, well, you know, there's been this ruling, we've got to do it. That was a lie. Right. Again, by that dastardly Hermer, Lord Blimmin' Hermer, the Matrix Chambers. Creepy name. And then you've got attacking farming, basically going, oh, do you know, all that land that you used to, like, I don't know, farm on to feed the nation? Forget about that. We don't need you. Mad. We've now got just 6 days of self-sufficiency. If anyone were to do anything, and it doesn't, I'm not talking about a war. The Houthi rebels are enough to stop cargo coming out the Black Sea. Do you know what I mean? It's the idea that we cannot sustain ourselves. Then we got concreting in the oil wells. Oh, do you need to turn lights on in this country? No, you don't. That's really hard to reverse. Also, when you block the even exploratory drilling for oil, it means that whoever comes, you know, after the Labour Party, and let's hope someone, you know, replaces them, it then puts us back years and years and years to know if we really need to not be importing gas from abroad. You know, we need to get it out ourselves. Well, sorry, we've concreted that up and no one's allowed to look for anything else. The mad mass migration that's going on. And then on top of that, the, you know, potentially scrapping jurors. I'm like, who on earth is running this country?
As a Liberal, that is bad.
This is all really bad.
Well, it's all bad, but I think that is especially bad.
If you literally looked at this list, and let's think of some more things to go on it. A year ago, I put that list in front of you and went, Mathieu, qu'est-ce que tu penses? You would say, well, I don't know, this looks like it's some sort of...
Exactly.
This looks like some...
Je ne regrette rien.
Yeah, this looks like some sort of crazy litany of offences by a dictatorship in Haiti or something. It's mad. They're mad.
It's not good, and I've never known it. Perhaps if you discount the Liz Truss aberration, if you discount that, I don't think I've ever known a government go down the Swanee as fast as this one has. And I think they're there until next May, but when they're stuffed at the ballot box by next May, they surely can't survive that, Phil.
Well, you mean like in Wales and Scotland?
I would be baffled if they did manage to survive it somehow, even if it was to say a coalition. I don't think anyone would want to work with them, because whichever party across the benches looked at and thought, right, for a chance to get into government, I'm going to have to form some sort of coalition. Would they really want to do it with this Labour lot? I don't think they would.
I think my lot might be eyeing that up, though.
Eyeing it, but I don't think they'd do it. No, but
I'm a former Lib Dem councillor.
Yeah, but let's be honest. The last coalition...
We do still exist, just about.
The last coalition that the Lib Dems jumped into bed with
not good.
Didn't end so well, did it?
It didn't end well at all for us.
I don't think that is something that they're going to repeat in a hurry, because actually I think the Liberal Democrats have more effect by being something, you know, it's obviously, I know that years ago they were one of the two main parties. I know the whole Whigs and Tories.
A very long time ago. Yeah.
But the point being is that I think they actually have more sway and more power if they do sit on the opposition benches without coalition, because actually then they can stand by their principles and try and question it.
Mathieu, I might be about to insult you, so I'm giving you a disclaimer before I do. See, my feeling about the Lib Dems is they're kind of like the absence of politics. I don't mean that, you know, you probably have lots of politics. It's just everyone who votes for you doesn't seem to know what they are. They, you know, your party leader spent the entirety of the election on a body of water, so no one could actually ask him a question.
Well, to be fair, he did do a bouncy castle as well.
He's a very nice man, Ed.
But this is it, right? So this is it. I live in a Lib Dem area, and it's full of like women who shop at Waitrose going, oh, I'm a Lib Dem voter. Oh, it's Ed Davies, so lovely. Isn't he nice? And I'm like, okay, so what would they do if they ran the country? Oh, he's just so lovely. Have you seen that clip on TikTok in that woolly jumper? I'm like, what is this?
He loves his woolly jumpers.
It's people who don't like the Tories because they're lefty women. They don't like the Labour Party because that's a little bit too, you know, poor folk for them or city folk for them. And so they're like, oh yeah, we're going to vote Lib Dem because Ed Davies nice.
Or maybe woolly jumpers is one of their policies. Maybe it's an alternative to the winter fuel allowance.
It is a policy, along with the slippers and, you know...
Yeah, perfect.
All of that. Yeah. But look, I mean, we are just genuinely nice local champions. I mean, I'm almost sick to death of hearing. I'm almost sick to death of hearing that myself. But we are. We just like to serve our communities. Quite what that means for us as a national party, I wouldn't.
I
like
love this. I've actually got a Lib Dem sitting in front of me who's like, "What's your policies to run the country? Vote for us."
Yeah.
We're
I
nice.
can't do that. I have heard some things come out of Liberal Democrats surrounding the Middle East situation that I don't find so lovely, but let's not get into that too much.
Okay.
But anyway, but yeah, so in terms of sort of the whole, well, where did we start with this? Rachel Reeves.
Rachel
wasn't it?
Reeves.
That's where we started with
But
those.
no, let's actually talk about. Let's talk about these. I'm trying to think of a
radio-friendly.
I know, yeah, running through all these words in my head, going, no, Ofcom won't like that. Ofcom won't like that. No, definitely not that one. These more alternative choice left-wing movements that we've got popping up.
Oh yes, let's discuss those.
Let's discuss those. Because as far as I can tell, you've got the sort of...
Are you referring to the Fruit and Nut Party?
Well, there's... Right, the party who doesn't yet have a
acceptable?
name. Your party, not my party.
I think it is.
Yes. Weird is what dangerously weird.
Yes.
And then also the hypnotist, for crying out loud.
I knew Zach when he was in the Lib Dems, much more moderate back then. He's gone on a journey. He left the party. He left the party because he didn't get selected sufficiently quickly.
Because he's weird.
Very keen on his own abilities is our Zach.
But so is all the leftist media apparently, because I don't know where this snaggletooth weird pervert comes from. I can make your boobs bigger.
That wasn't his finest.
Phil's thinking I'm like the weekend editor right now, and that's an Ofcom complaint in the
Wasn't
making.
his finest moment, was it really?
But
on the
no,
plus
come
side,
on,
you've made my Fruit and
I'm
Nut comment look quite mild, so I'm quite happy.
If in the world of journalism, people are going to have chickens over something that a 13-year-old said in the playground over 50 years ago, we do need to talk about the fact that this man made money, as far as I can tell, basically exploiting vulnerable women.
It wasn't good.
Because a woman who goes to someone who says, "Oh, I can make your boobs bigger through hypnosis. This is how much money it's going to cost." That's not okay.
Well, it's not completely something I look for in a leader. Let's put it that way. But can I suggest as well that actually what you're saying about the whole idea of anyway, look, you're talking about sort of the idea of I've totally forgotten now, so don't worry, I don't even know what the hell
this is going really well.
It's going really well. I've forgotten.
Someone please bring Phil Dave coffee. He's malfunctioning.
I've forgotten.
So on RE Your Party, or whatever they're called,
definitely not my party.
Whatever they're called today, I mean, there's already factions on factions. They're already accusing the leadership of being a traitor. There's already people leaving. I mean, the left never sorts itself out in this country.
Oh, it's crazy.
It never.
That's a good idea for a bit of audience engagement. You're going to like this, Mr. Phil Dave. What should we do as our interaction today? Well, apparently your party is holding their launch event in Liverpool, and part of this is going to be asking its membership to finally give them a name. You can see where I'm going with this, can you? Don't send me the Fruit and Nut Party. We know that one. We've got it. But please let me know what you think their nomenclature should be. 03444 991 is the number to send me a WhatsApp or leave me a voice note. You can do it in song form if you like. 87222 is the number to send me a text message. Write the word talk before you text. OK, we're going to take a short break and see if we can crank Phil Dave back up into operational order. Looking forward to you rejoining us just after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
By and large, it turns out these cretins at Talk have half a brain cell between them. We're doing fairly well on the Times Saturday quiz. It turns out that the Dutch ship escaping Java in disguise actually disguised itself, no, not as Michael Fabricant, but as an island.
Ooh.
Do you think they just took a load of palm trees and an orangutan or two and just sort of like, off we go?
Well, it's a reasonably clever idea, I suppose.
It's a shame there wasn't sort of, you know, phone cameras, smartphones back then, because I really want to see a picture of that. Can you see if you can scare up TechOp some sort? I knew you would.
Well, you know what? You just get AI to generate it now. You just sort of say AI, do the selfie.
There's got to be at least an artist's impression. If it's that infamous that there's this sort of Dutch boat that disguised itself in this island to flee Java, someone somewhere has done some sort of sketch of this. Surely, TechOp is going to find it.
Maybe the island didn't stay in the same place long enough.
And share it with us so we can share it with you. And then someone who's going to be tuning in about 11 o'clock will be like, what is going on? In fact, people have been tuned in since 10 o'clock wondering what is going on. Because I don't know today. I think I've gone a bit mad. Let's do some messages, shall we? Dave in Portsmouth says, your party should be called the full-on woke party. Well, it's all right, Dave. I think we can get better than that, though. No offence. I mean, you're great. Love it. Thank you for your interaction. But I want pure sort of, you know, British humour.
Play on words.
Yeah, play on words. I want something that's like a little bit edgy, so I have to look at it and second guess whether I'm allowed to say it on air. That's what I want. Hi, Alex. I think the Labour Party, at least at ministerial level, know they are doomed. So they're making decisions and taking actions which they know cannot be reversed by any other party that follows them in the future. And whoever that might be will struggle. It looks to be a deliberate strategy. Great show, says Dave from Kent. It's interesting, actually, because the Labour Party have form in doing that. You know, sort of putting in place, oh, we're just going to, I don't know, create the Supreme Court, and that sort of binds us forever in history. We're going to create the Human Rights Act. Try getting that out of your legislature. They do like to bind a successor. That is what people say.
Well, the worst offence they ever committed was abolishing hereditary peers. That was just so detrimental.
Really?
No, that was so detrimental.
Is that the hill you're dying on?
That's
hereditary fears?
No, excuse me. That was so detrimental to this country because you're talking about families who had this in their mind for generations, that this is what they were, if you like, being raised to do, to be guardians of the UK.
Electoral mandates.
And who cares? Guardians of the country. Guardians of the country.
Democracy
just
matters.
Demolished. Gone. Trust me. That was a big mistake.
Quite right too.
Wow, I did not expect to hear like the little Count Dave coming up with some sort of pro-nobility argument as the worst thing that the Labour Party's done. But hey, you know.
I said one of the worst things.
Each to their own. Your he, she, they, them party.
He, she.
He, she, they. It's a play on pronouns.
I see, a play on pronouns.
Rather than your. Maybe it should be ze or the instead of your.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. I think there's got to be better out there than that, isn't there? No offence.
I quite like that one. How about your party naming itself the Monster Raving Lunia Party? Oh, yeah, good. Oh, I love Count Binface. Right. I digress. In fact, you know, shall we keep things...
She has a go at me for her.
Shall we keep things weird? Yes, we shall. Because one thing that the best thing that came out of the budget, because there was a good thing that came out of the budget. I know. Brace yourselves. It was actually a viral video clip that circulated online of Kemi Badenoch taking down, eviscerating Rachel from accounts. Now, if you haven't seen this, brace yourselves, because this is a work of creative genius. Hit it.
Oh. All we've had from her is wallowing, wailing, self-pity speeches, victimhood, flailing, crying about misogyny, whining about mansplaining. But listen up, Kemi's here, and the roof's about to cave in.
So, man and deputy speaker.
Let me break it down clean. Woman to woman rate, I'll tell you what I mean. People ain't complaining because you're female on the scene. They complaining because you run the country like a broken machine.
I mean, that is exceptional. Apparently, Kemi loves it. Apparently, she's seen it and she thinks it's brilliant.
I'm pleased she does. Well, I thought
that's great.
Well, look, someone's clearly got a bit too much time on their hand. I personally was really pleased to actually see Kemi have a bit of backbone, so that in the actual response to the budget, finally, if we sort of saw a bit more of that Kemi taking Rachel Reeves apart and actually sort of breaking down the reason why the budget was so terrible, maybe the Conservatives wouldn't be in the situation they're in now in terms of the polls.
I think that this is going. I think that she's nudged them up a bit in the polls with that performance in PMQs. I think. What do you reckon?
She certainly had a Weetabix, hadn't she, on Wednesday? I mean, I could have personally done without some of the more personal remarks. I just don't really think those are necessary. I think there was enough to have a go at in terms of
That's because he's a Lib Dem and he's nice.
It is. Yeah. I am, and that's true. And I think it's very saddening that when my leader, God bless him, rises to do his bit about the budget, all the TV cameras have...
Have they left? They got bored, did they? Oh, dear.
Oh.
I know, saddening, isn't it? Because he's such a nice man.
He's such a nice man because he's a Lib
such a
Dem.
nice man.
But don't
Was he
ask
wearing
him
a woolly
about
jumper?
Don't ask him about that period in office when he was in charge of the post offices.
Well, it wasn't just him. There was
There was
lots of post office ministers.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
you know, it ain't a good look. No wonder he spent his election campaign on a jet ski. Now, talking about things on water, let's talk about the French police. Because what's really interesting is the fact that essentially the people traffickers have been trolling the French police because the French police unions were like, well, they can't go into the water. They're going to, ruin their loafers or something. And so what the people traffickers were doing is getting these sort of 20-foot dinghies from China, setting them sail somewhere where the police weren't, far, far up the coast, and then coming along like a giant water bus, picking up the migrants along the coastline. And the migrants would be on the beach. They'd run out into the shallows and get onto the dinghy, and because the French police weren't allowed to get in the water, they couldn't do anything. Now, apparently, the French police are allowed to get into the water. Do you think this is going to finally stop the boats?
No. Headline, apart from anything, actually, sorry, this nonsense. I'm so fed up of sort of hearing various excuses as to why we can't stop the boats, why we can't do this, you can't do that. It's again. Do you really think during the Second World War, if there was ever any chance that Germans would have used the water, would have used the channels to cross over and start entering into our territory, do you really think anyone then would have turned around and said, oh, well, we've got to bring them to shore because it's for their health and safety. We can't possibly threaten them with any navy or anything like that. It would be against their human rights. We've got to bring them to safety. We've got to bring them to... No, it's an invasion. Get a grip, for crying out loud. Call it what it is. This country is being invaded by people who should not be here.
That's a very strong word.
It's not...
He's nice. You're upsetting him.
Well, I will get over it because time is a great healer. But it's very simple. I'm sorry, but we've got to get a grip and call it what it is.
These are human beings,
and
Phil.
so are we. We're taxpayers and we're paying a fortune.
So are the men on the vessels of the Spanish Armada, quite frankly, and we managed to stop those
I was going to say, I hate to tell you, well, technically speaking...
Look, I'm a woolly-hearted liberal on these matters.
Technically speaking, the Nazis were humans, but I'm sorry, but I wouldn't have treated them with so...
I hope you're not comparing... Well...
I'm just saying...
No.
I'm just saying...
Comparing everything to Nazis is what the left wing do.
Oh, sorry,
apart from Kevin Hollenrake.
Sorry.
He's now joined their ranks, hasn't he?
Fine.
But Mathieu, what are we going to do about the blimmin' boats? Because it's very clear, this whole idea of, all this legislation, we can't do this, the French can't get into the water. It is a massive problem. And do you, I know you're a nice man who cares for all human beings.
I do.
But do you think that among some of these people who are coming out of pretty dodgy countries, breaking into the country illegally, who have paid a lot of money to some of the most, horrible people on the planet, people traffickers.
But they're human.
They're human too. Who are part
I feel
of...
like I'm being gently mocked.
But the thing is about the people traffickers, of course, is the reason why it's just so many young men on those boats is because if you're a woman and you start off on those trafficking routes, you're sold into sex slavery or domestic servitude and put online on the black market. And if you're a teenager, hey ho, there's some pretty tasty organs we can give to people in richer countries. So the thing is, it's a really horrible human trade, isn't it? But not only that, the more we don't do anything about it, those people are getting away with doing that stuff. But do you think that among the number of people who might be coming out of Syria and Afghanistan, there could be terrorists?
Well, in theory, yes, there could be. But, I just look on human nature in a different way. I think most people are good, and I think there's nothing wrong implicitly with seeking a better life. Now, should they be having to cross the high seas, and put themselves in peril and in danger? No, of course not. But my answer to that, and I know you two probably won't agree, but my answer to that is to have more safe and legal routes for people that are genuinely seeking asylum.
So let's talk about this, because
I do agree with that.
Good.
Really?
No, but I tell you why I agree with it, because then we'd be able to have tougher policies in place that seriously seriously limit the number of people who can come over here and take advantage of the system.
Safe and legal routes, like the one that we surreptitiously didn't tell anyone about from Afghanistan, and we can already see how that's working out in America, can't we? Brilliant. I just kind of feel like, no, stay in your own countries or go to a refugee camp in a neighbouring country. Well, that is how it's worked since time immemorial.
I was going to say, all I would argue, though, is that if people are genuinely fleeing some sort of persecution or some sort of troublesome country, then why make a beeline for Britain? And the obvious answer is because we're soft.
Because we're welcoming. And decent,
soft,
and kind,
just soft. I mean,
and
dish
humane.
our money out.
That's why.
No.
Nothing to do
Remember,
with it.
we've got the list of all the evil things the governments have done. Oh, actually, no, they are when it comes to the migrants. They are welcoming, aren't they?
Okay, but Matthew, seriously, you can't possibly be happy with the amount of money that successive governments have been hoofing out at this problem. Surely, it's costing this country a fortune.
Well, it is, because they've not had a compassionate, decent system that has judged each individual as an individual.
But are you not angry about how much it costs us?
I mean, I'm just not.
Do you know what I'm most angry about? I'm most angry about the fact that we're importing...
Sky high for it.
I'm angry that we're importing a shed load of men from countries where women are treated like chattel, and it's having a deleterious impact on women's safety. Now, if you liked the sound of that little argument, you might want to tune in to the brilliant new show that I'm part of, Talk Women, which is available on YouTube. If you haven't seen the first episode, why not? Stop dragging your heels, get on with it, because we've got a second one coming out, and here is the trailer for it.
It's a pleasure actually going to meet the Reform UK members in Epping. I saw the hotel, and it really is right in the middle of the community. But you know what's really heartbreaking, I think, for them is basically the government saying that your safety, your priorities, and your needs come second to international treaties and international obligations.
Leads into the other issues of women's single-sex spaces, full stop. And it's driving me crazy that as a country we're not having the border debate, which is at the crux of all of this, which is, yes, there are some people who are genuinely dysphoric. It's a vanishingly small percentage of the population, and it's predominantly men.
We can see from Kamala Harris's failed campaign that even if you do have every single person in Hollywood behind you and you're paying them $5 million to do one speech for your campaign, it still won't work.
There you are. That is Talk Women. That is available on all podcast platforms, also on YouTube. So get tuning in. We're going to take a short break now after that little promo that I just did for myself and my new venture. But when we come back, these two reprobates are still going to be here, so don't you go anywhere either.
Talking about you.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. You'll be pleased to know TechUp has managed to find a photograph of the boat HNLMS Abraham Creinson, a minesweeper of the Royal Netherlands Navy, which had to disguise itself to flee from Java. It was disguised as a tropical island to avoid detection and was the last Dutch ship to escape from the region. I've got a photo of the boat disguised as an island. Oh, look at that!
It doesn't look absolutely like an island.
No, it's not very convincing, is it?
I'm slightly concerned. The fact that it actually, to be honest with you, the fact that it managed to escape Java looking like that, I actually think says more about Java. But anyway, yeah, there you go. So.
They've just basically chopped down half the rainforest and festooned it all over the boat.
Brilliant.
The problem is, from a distance, if you saw that, you know, if you didn't have good quality binos, you might just think that is more of the island. The problem is when it starts moving and you're like, how's that working? Anyway, that is absolutely brilliant. The boat disguised as an island. I actually want that framed and on my wall. There it is. Isn't that lovely?
There's one for the downstairs, Lou.
Do you think they'd been on the wacky backy when they came up with that idea?
Could possibly comment, couldn't
Who
we?
only knows?
You know what the Dutch are like. Right, let's go back to...
Not
I'm sure they're lovely.
Not
I'm sure
all
they're
the
lovely.
Dutch. Oh, you and your lovely people, come on.
Love the Dutch. Do love the Dutch. They scare me.
Well, they
a
know
bit,
how to
though.
split a bill.
They're very they're very direct, the Dutch. You always know where you stand with them. Let's talk about, we were talking about it a bit before the break, which is the fact that the Trump administration is halting all asylum decisions following a deadly National Guard shooting in Washington. We know that the culprit is Ramanullah Lakanwal, a 29-year-old Afghan national who had worked with the CIA. So this is the thing, we were talking about safe and legal routes and both of you seem to think that's a good idea. I point you towards Ramanullah Lakanwal, who worked with the CIA and was given a safe and legal route into America and then decided to gun down members of the National Guard.
So can I just point out why it is that I say that I'm in favour of safe and legal routes is because that I actually know how...
Not for compassionate reasons.
Not for compassionate reasons at all.
I thought not.
He doesn't know what compassion is. He's not a Lib Dem.
Not for compassionate reasons at all, because I happen to know how difficult it is, because there are some friends and indeed colleagues of ours who have been through the most shocking time trying to obtain visas to work here in the UK, who are really hard workers, really decent people, who all they want to do is just be good, honest, tax-paying citizens and make a life for themselves here. And there is one in particular who is sort of facing a real troublesome time that means that they actually might not get the visa in all of this. When I see someone like that has got less right to be here than people who come over in dinghies, that's why I'm
This is
more in
what I
favour
find
of it.
utterly crazy, OK? In the United Kingdom, I personally think, and Mathieu, tell me what you think about this, I would have, personally, an immigration system that prioritised visa-free travel for people from the Anglosphere, America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, people who are basically us, but in a different part of the world. That, to me, is the sort of person who say, do you want to come and be part of our economy and spend a bit of time up over, if you've come from down under? I don't know if the Australians ever call us that. They should. Or, you know, to me, those are people who are immediately going to assimilate into Britain. I mean, you know, by and large, talk is being taken over by the Aussies at the moment.
We do know news broadcasting is technically an Australian organisation.
Oh, yeah, that's true, actually.
So that might have something to do with it. But
yeah. Papa Murdoch. True.
Is that something to do with cricket?
What?
Australians.
I don't believe so.
Australians to do with cricket.
What? I didn't get that reference.
No, I didn't get it either.
Are they not winning at the moment?
Oh, I see. Oh, right. Oh, okay.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I don't follow cricket.
No, I
sorry.
don't
You have me
either.
stumped there.
No, I only follow sports that involve potential death or maiming. Formula One's on later. The sprint race, can't wait. We're all going to go to the Sir John Redwood pub, which is a thing. Right, so, but the thing is, Matthew, to me, and I don't think it's racist at all, because I've lived all around the world. I've lived in Ghana, I've lived in India, I've lived in Kenya, not just sort of visited there on gap year, but lived, worked, earned money.
Right.
Part of the society. So I have no issue. I'm not exactly some sort of screaming xenophobe. And I think that it's absolutely okay to say to any from any country, if you are a very talented individual, you know, nuclear physicist, a top surgeon, whatever, come along. But then for the other jobs, I would rather, sort of the lower tier, unskilled jobs, I would rather we give young Aussies an opportunity and say to them, you don't need a visa. I think the danger is when we start importing people from countries with a radically different culture to ours who aren't the educated. Those are the people, by and large. If you have an astrophysicist from Afghanistan, the likelihood is they're probably going to speak good English and have Western values. If you have the lowly goat herd, he probably thinks if a woman doesn't wear a burqa, you should lob rocks at her. That is the problem, and I think we've got to be discerning.
You see, I just think most people are good.
Really? Even the guy who, even when you see the Taliban chucking rocks at women, you think they're good?
Well, clearly they're not good, but I just have a belief in human nature, and I think most people, not all of course, but most people that come here are coming here because they believe us to be welcoming. It would appear that we're not anymore, but that is why they come.
You seriously don't think that we're a welcoming country anymore?
Well, are we anymore?
Yes.
I wish
do we sound welcoming?
Well, I don't.
We might not
but
sound
I'm not running the joint.
But I wish we weren't welcoming as we were. No, all I know is that if I hark back to when my ancestors came over here, they had to blooming well work hard to earn their right to stay here, and that's what I don't understand.
Also, when there was
these folks are not allowed to work.
When there were Jewish refugees around the time of the Second World War, they were put into camps. Not refugee camps.
Okay.
The accommodation was sort of the international standard protocol.
Even I knew what you meant, don't worry.
So, yes, I know. That did sound a bit wrong. Listen, we haven't got much time left, and I know you cannot wait to talk about this, Matthew. Nigel Farage has slammed Sir Keir Starmer on China, because he's basically said that China is up to all sorts of dastardly things. They want this mega embassy that apparently Sir Keir Starmer's going to give them, that they've been spying. We know they have. And Starmer's basically saying, you need to be tough on China. They are a threat. They're a threat to the economy. He's right, isn't he?
Well, China does need to be watched, but do you know what other country also needs to be watched? Russia. Russia needs to be watched. And what does Mr. Farage know about Russia? What does he know about what some of his colleagues, at least one of them, knew about Russia? Let's get some answers from Mr. Farage on Russia before he starts demanding answers from Keir Starmer on China.
The thing is, though, I don't think Nigel Farage has a policy of going to Mars with Putin, which is what Trump's policy is. We're going to be discussing that later. I can't wait. The case of Nathan Gill, I've known Nathan Gill an awfully long time. 20 years I've known Nathan Gill. I had no idea. Nobody had any idea whatsoever he was doing this. I mean, no one did. That's the point. And
he just said lots of positive things about Russia.
But
for no reason.
Well, the thing is, I don't know if you've ever seen how the European Parliament works. It's funny, most Lib Dems love that institution.
I do love that institution.
But barely set foot inside it. But when people are making speeches to the hemicycle, there's never anybody else in there. That's the blimmin' point. And most of them are submitted just as a written question into the annals. In fact, you know, frankly, it's a
party leader should know what his MEPs are saying.
It's a pretty poor game by, if that's the best that Russia can do. It's like, dude, you do realise that the European Parliament has zero influence over anything. But no, look, it was dreadful. It's embarrassing for the party, without a doubt. But it's a bit like saying, you know, because you've got an MP who's been arrested on child abuse charges, that makes Sir Keir Starmer a child abuser. I mean, the thing is, you can't...
It really is. This argument that sort of somehow a leader of a party should know everything that their party members get up to is not completely...
Barry Gardiner employed Russian spies, for crying out loud. Does that mean Sir Keir Starmer is...
But Farage has praised Putin a lot, so that's why that people have concerns,
I think he said he was an operator. Clearly he is. The man's running rings around Donald Trump. Don't mean we like him, does it?
But on the subject of China, we have systematically almost handed over all industry to China over successive governments for decades in this country. And I think we're now starting to finally feel the pinch from that. You know, because China do, frankly, not surprisingly, have the upper hand. And I would rather they didn't, but that is, unfortunately, successive policies have meant that. We have literally shut down everything that we ever produced in this country and just said, oh, we can make it cheaper in China.
Is this super embassy going to be built?
Yes, that's the point. He said yes to it.
That's not good, is it?
It's not good at all. Apparently there's some checks and balances.
Unnerving.
But I think what's even scarier is we know from other countries that the Chinese, when they're selling solar panels, put a kill switch in them. And I was speaking to a very senior figure from the military just yesterday in our own green room downstairs. And we were talking about this, and he said to me, you know, look at what happened in Spain when there was the big blackouts and all the surge, and it was blamed on all there being a sort of over-functioning of the grid with the solar panels. He was like, how do you know that's not China? There's a lot of things going on.
Right.
And
Also,
to basically
we know this
hand
anyway.
critical infrastructure to a country that we know overtly their plan is to try and destroy the West. It's like, what are you doing?
But we know this already, because it wasn't that long ago that Huawei was banned from doing the 5G masts. Remember all of that?
I remember all of that.
That was very well. Absolutely a thing. And as far as I'm concerned, you know, sort of if you go into bed with any country that potentially poses a threat to our national security, not only more fool those politicians, shame on those
Russia.
Politicians.
Including Russia.
Right. Gentlemen, you'll be very disappointed to learn that that is the end of the segment with you guys. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, boss, Mr. Phil Dave, and merci beaucoup, Mathieu Albert. It has been sensational having your company. Right, you don't get to go anywhere. He's going to go back behind the glass and start shouting at me in my earpiece, and Mathieu's going to go for some petit déjeuner, and you're going to stay tuned to talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the show. Can I just say Tech Op is on fire today. He's really delighting me because he's not just gone and found one picture of the boat disguised as an island, but he's printed off an entire series of them, which if you're listening on the radio, I'm so sorry that you don't get to see this, but they're absolutely astonishing. So, first of all, let me show you that this is great. So I was like, oh, it don't really work, does it? But look at that. Where is the boat? Can you see the boat? It's a cool disguise, isn't it? At that moment in time, it's very hard to distinguish the boat from the landmass behind it. I think that's a very well-wrought disguise, until all of a sudden you get to this, where it's just in the middle of the ocean. It's like, yeah, it just looks plain weird. All of a sudden, that isn't particularly secreted anymore, is it? But more beautifully, we have a before and after, the boat's glow up. So as you can see here is the boat disguised as an island. Here is the before boat, just as a boat. Look at that. I'm obsessed with this boat now. I'm totally obsessed with the boat disguised as an island. It's my new favourite subject. What would you call that boat, if you could? Because we love naming boats in this country. I was listening to the news the other day, and apparently there's a team of archaeologists who've excavated the boat at Sutton Hoo, the old Anglo-Saxon boat in which kings were buried or some such. And they're recreating it. They're basically reconstructing this boat, and they've asked the public, guess what? To name the boats, because we all know what happened with the Arctic Explorer boat and the naming of that when everyone went wild and wanted to call it Boaty McBoatface, and they didn't. They called it something really normal, which was a shame. So what would you call the recreation of the Anglo-Saxon boat at Sutton Hoo? I'm going to go first. I think it should be called Boaty Red the Ready. Yeah, you get it? Let me know, because you can talk about politics or you can name boats. It's up to you. 0344 499 1000. And don't forget, that's for WhatsApp, by the way. Don't forget, you can also name Jeremy Corbyn's party. Let's just name things today. 0344 499 1000 is the number for WhatsApp. You can also give me a call on that number. And at some point in the future, when we're taking calls, which will happen at 11:20, we'll give you a call back and have a chit-chat. 87222 is the number to send me a text message. Write the word talk before you text. OK, now let us continue with talking about migration with the brilliant Henry Bolton, international border control expert. Great to have you back on the show, Henry. How are you doing?
Hi, Alex. Thanks. I'm trying to think up names for boats now, so
because that's the best thing we can do on a Saturday. Anything to cheer us up in the dismal aftermath of that budget. Let's talk about actually about the backlash against the Labour Party's idea to house migrants in barracks. Now, on some level, look, I just want these, people who've broken into the country illegally to all be sent home. But if it comes down to a choice between housing migrants in hotels, housing them in HMOs, or potentially housing them in disused barracks, I can see some argument for why barracks might be better if they were basically not allowed out. These are secure sites. Of course, they will be allowed to roam around, and that is where the plan falls apart, because in my mind, what this is going to do is start spreading the problem to parts of the country that, frankly, haven't been inundated with illegal migrants yet. Wiltshire, for example, beautiful green Wiltshire, has plenty of disused barracks. But also, when you look at, and I take Wiltshire as a brilliant example, when you look at those towns, a lot of the residents tend to be connected to the armed forces. And if there's one thing that we know about some of these people who are coming over on boats from places like Iraq and Afghanistan, is they don't think a great deal of our armed forces. I think that's potentially a big security risk. What do you make of this policy?
Well, on your latter point, the Americans have just found that out to their cost, haven't they, with two National Guardsmen being shot by an Afghan. This is still firefighting, Alex. So I agree with you on one level. Look, we've got these facilities out there. Fewer and fewer, because the Ministry of Defence keeps selling them off to housing development companies and so on. But we do have some of these facilities available. Most of them are training camps, like Crowborough down in East Sussex. Now, I don't actually think that they are in any way suitable for any sort of medium to long-term accommodation for asylum seekers or anybody else, apart from the military. They're temporary. They're used for the military go through there sort of 2 weeks at a time, a weekend at a time, if it's the reserve army or so. It's a training base, and it doesn't have the facilities to support a large number of people for any period of time. And they're dispersed all over the country. Now, what I think we need to do, all of these people who come across, these people who enter the country illegally, need to be detained, not just accommodated, detained securely until such time as we can ascertain who they are, what sort of a security risk they are, or we can remove them. And until such time as all of that is clarified, they should be securely detained. Now, we've got a history of doing that at barracks because when there was a prisoner strike some years ago, we used a number of training camps as prisons for British prisoners, and they were secured, they were guarded by the army. So there is a precedent for it, but ultimately we can talk about this. We're talking about the wrong thing because this is not a strategic solution. What we need are, I think, a purpose-built or a couple of purpose-built facilities that are secure, that are away from the population, that can be provided with the relevant medical care and so on. Let's, bin the idea of taxis and so on being used, because you don't need it if you've got everything there. We can look after their welfare until such time as they leave.
Can't we just sort of rummage around north of Scotland and find some sort of uninhabited atoll and build a Nightingale detention centre on it?
We could do. I mean, look, I'm a spokesman for the Social Democrat Party, and the SDP's policy is Ascension Island. Put it out there because it's off mainland UK. So you arrive on a dinghy, you're immediately sort of checked in, biometrics taken off to an airfield, flown down to Ascension, put in a detention facility in Ascension until such time as either you decide that you want to go home and you ask to go home, or we send you back. That way you're sort of out of you're not a security risk, you're out of the whole sort of, you're not going to have protests outside a camp like that in the middle of the Atlantic. And it is a deterrent. You don't even set foot in the UK for more than a couple of hours.
I'm actually beginning to think, given Ed Miliband has such an appetite for pouring cement down our oil wells, perhaps there might be a rig or two in the middle of the North Sea that's currently not in use.
Exactly. I mean, but the point is we need to... there is a security risk. That's, I've worked this issue for many years. There's a security risk. There is no deterrent. The Prime Minister has recently written to President Macron. In that letter that was leaked, he said, we have no deterrent. No, we have lots of options for deterrence. You just don't want to apply them, Prime Minister. That's the problem here. And people will continue to come to the United Kingdom illegally as long as there is something in it for them.
So hold on. Let me get this straight, because this is the first time I'm hearing this story, because I know for a long time France have basically said about the United Kingdom, you've got to sort yourselves out because you are basically El Dorado for migrants, which is absolutely fair. And Sir Keir Starmer's written to Macron going, yeah, that's true, basically.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's a leaked letter in which he talks about a number of things, but he talks about the boats and he talks about how he wants France to do more, but to stop the boats, because we have no deterrent. Well, no, we have no deterrent, Prime Minister, because you don't want to apply a deterrent.
By choice, exactly.
You don't want to make it... As long as the United Kingdom is an attract... Look, Alex, nobody goes somewhere unless they're compelled to do so or they want to do so. And nobody's compelling them to come to the United Kingdom. If they want to come to the United Kingdom, then it is because they consider the United Kingdom an attractive destination for whatever reason. And so we need to address that, because otherwise they will just simply continue to come.
Well, at least the French police are allowed to go into the water now. That's going to change the game, isn't it, Henry?
Not really, no. I mean, we've been over on this side of the channel, and this would be an unpopular thing to say, possibly, but we've always enjoyed bashing the French, and the French have got no reason to want to keep these people either. But they have been stopping about a third of the boats already. They are looking at other ways to do it, but the French constitution is an obstacle. French law is an obstacle. There's a whole raft of issues, and they still can't solve the problem, which I think we should be working with them on, of how to stop them getting to France in the first place. The French don't want them. But that's, again, part of the European Union problem. The European Union is not stopping these people getting into the European Union in the first place. Then they've got freedom of movement, and they just find their way to France. So if the French don't let them through, there's just going to be this build-up unless that longer chain through Europe is addressed. So, this is much bigger than the Channel. And as long as that pressure builds up on the North French coast, the French have got a growing problem, which we're not doing anything to help them with. No. We're not working together with them on that. We just want them, stop the boats, stop the boats, stop the boats. We are failing entirely to see the problem for them from their perspective. If we did, we might make some great headway.
Do you know who I blame for this fundamentally? I blame Mary I. Because wasn't she the monarch who once upon a time we used to own Calais and she signed it back over to the French? If we owned Calais, we'd be able to stop the blimmin' boats ourselves. We'd turn our little corner of France into one giant detention centre and go like, oh, you want to try get across, do you? This is where you now live.
It's an interesting policy proposal, that, Alex. We'll send a task force over and retake Calais and Boulogne and Harfleur. Yeah.
Why not? It's probably better than any idea the Labour government are going to come up with. Let's bring a caller into the conversation and welcome aboard Laura Jane, who's in Hampshire. Hi, Laura Jane.
Hi, Alex.
Hello, my love. Now, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I want to take you back to your opening remarks at the beginning of your show, where you were worried that everything seems to be a little on purpose, and you're concerned that this is not necessarily coming from inside Britain, but coming from outside Britain. You're at last, everyone is catching up with those of us who are considered loopy-loo since COVID. And yes, I really firmly believe that Rachel should go, but more importantly, the whole government, particularly Keir Starmer, because he would have known if the OBR had said there was no black hole and that she had a headroom, financial, fiscal headroom. He would have known. You can't tell me that the whole of Number 10 didn't know. And I feel that the lie is bigger than just Rachel Reeves. Unless it's Starmer's way of getting rid of her and he can pretend that it was that. I mean, the whole thing is Machiavellian beyond belief.
Oh, I totally agree. This government are just unscrupulous. People always say, oh, they're stupid, oh, they're incompetent, oh, they're a disaster. I think they're worryingly competent. I think they're worryingly effective about lying and getting away with it, about putting in place the sort of horrific anti-British policies that I don't believe any other government would get away with, handing over British territory, throwing people in prison for tweets, saying that babies can be aborted right up until the final day, pushing for euthanasia, lying to us about needing money so they can pay off their mates in the unions. It's crazy. They're doing things that no other government anywhere in the Western world would get away with.
It's scary, and there is definitely powers that be that are pulling the strings here. And, slowly but surely people are catching up with those of us who are considered loopy and conspiracy theorists. But it's all coming true, Alex. And it's really, really worrying because I don't see how we can stop it. I really don't. And that's the depressing part.
Well, let us hope. Let us hope somehow there is such a backlash against Rachel Reeves lying that it will be enough to begin the process of getting rid of this evil government. The problem is, they basically hold the cards, don't they? They can decide whether or not they're going to call an election, and I can't see why they will. I can't see why they will.
What's going to happen? They will bring through the digital ID, and then we're absolutely sunk, because once you bring in the digital ID, they can control us from every angle, every which way.
But do you not take some heart in the fact that if you look at what's going on the left wing, you've got this mad promotion of Zach Polansky and the Green Party. You've got the launching of your party right now up in Liverpool, that the left are fracturing. And so here lies an opportunity for the Conservatives and reform. And that if we actually change the government, a lot of the more egregious things that the Labour Party have done over the last few years might, well, not all of them, be very difficult to reverse things like the Chagos Islands. It'll be very difficult, this is the problem with the mass migration, it's very difficult to undo and unpick some of that stuff. But there's a lot that can actually go into the dustbin of history, to coin a communist term.
Well, I hope you're right. I do hope you're right. And every Sunday at Mass, I pray hard, because that's all we've got left, as far as I can see, is prayer and hope. And people like me who are nutty, age 65, who've been going on marches, which they never went on started in COVID, and we're with the farmers. We're with I'm speechless sometimes, and I'm so grateful for talk radio to keep me vaguely sane.
Us keep you sane? You just like joining the loony bin. I'm hardly the sanest person on earth. I don't know if you caught the first hour of the programme. I think I'm off my trolley. Laura Jane, thank you ever so much. It's always great catching up with you. And thank you as well to Henry Bolton for his insights onto the ongoing boats crisis. OK, we're going to take a short break now. If you want to give me a call and have a chit-chat, the number is on your screen. If you're listening on the radio, let me read it aloud. 0344 499 1000. You can dial that up. And it's your normal network rate, and we can have a chinwag after this next break. If you'd like to send me a WhatsApp message, it is also that number. Or indeed, leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. If you'd rather text, it's 87222. Right, the word. Idea that she's some helpless girl and therefore she's not dangerous is for the birds.
What would Sadiq Khan know about public transport? He travels around in a 3-car motorcade.
He would have you believe that London is this crime-free nirvana where we can leave our front doors open when we go to do a bit of shopping. Well, of course, that's just drivel.
Why does she have to highlight all the so-called anxiety of the world? I listen to music to escape, to be happy.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's just...
Imagine her listing, illegal immigration is rising.
I think music exists for 2 reasons, and I'm going to get myself cancelled here.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. OK, let's do some of your messages. Pauline in Glasgow says, Alex, please, come on. We don't want our beautiful Scottish islands ruined by putting migrants on them. Pauline, I didn't say the nice habitable ones. I'm looking for some sort of rocky outcrop covered in midges with horrific weather. You know, the sort of place where nobody lives and no one really knows it exists. There must be one, surely. There's quite a decent-sized archipelago up there. Is there nothing we can use? Because, unfortunately, Pauline, I know you don't want them in your beautiful islands in Scotland, but we don't really want them in the rolling hills of Wiltshire either. Regarding the illegal immigrants, we all know they need to be stopped before they get here or immediately sent back, but we know our governments are not interested in doing this. So there's an abandoned preserved town on Salisbury Plain. That sounds perfect to me. Darren in South Wales. Alex, you can sum up where we are as a country with today's headline news from the BBC that asylum seekers will no longer be allowed to take free taxis to medical appointments. It's being hailed as tough action. I'm sorry, but who in their right mind ever thought they should have been getting free taxis taxes other than taxi companies who have made millions of pounds from this scam. Also, can I just say, I thought they had like doctors basically in the asylum hotels. Why are they getting, 100, 200-mile journeys to go to a doctor? I don't get any of this. It's crazy that we can stop the Germans from invading, but to letting hundreds of thousands invade now, it has to be by design. Governments and military should be dealing with this. Well, exactly, this whole idea of stop the boats. We could. We could very easily. International law. I think this must be a name for something, whether it's the boat disguised as an island or the boat at Sutton Hoo, or maybe it's the name for Jeremy Corbyn's new party because someone's just sent the message going Coconut Cove. Pick any of the above. Alex, the leftover party should be called the Granola Party, as it's full of fruits and nuts. Yes, I know, we've heard that one before. I'd call the boat, get this, and I don't know which boat, Sutton Hoo boat or a boat disguised as island, but a smart-ass Graham has said I'd call the boat a ship. Boats are either submarines or small enough to be lifted onto a larger vessel by a David. A David? Is that like a term for something that lifts up boats? You're teaching me a lot of stuff, Graham. Although you did call me Akex, A-K-E-X, which kind of sounds like a cool Tibetan version of my name. Maybe I'll change it by deed poll. I'd call the boat Pride of Starmer. All right. Morning, Alex. Aren't some just foaming at the mouth to tag Nigel for the exploits of others? I mean, this is the thing. They're just whipping out the old ancient playbook, aren't they? I know. Let's go Nigel Farage a racist. If that doesn't work, let's blame it on Russia and pretend he's got connections to the Kremlin. And they did this before. Aaron Banks ended up being able to take Carol Cadwalladr to the cleaners over those accusations. The Nathan Gill story isn't great. I don't think anybody can suggest otherwise. But one person doing something illegal does not mean that everybody else who that person's ever spoken to or knows is doing the same thing. That is ridiculous. And when people go, oh, but Nigel Farage has praised Putin, he said Putin was an operator. I mean, that might be regarded as praise, but he's also pointed out very clearly that he is no fan of Putin, that Putin, and to quote Nigel directly, is a very bad dude. But even I agree that Putin's an operator. He's been running rings around Donald Trump, hasn't he? He's been running rings around the whole of the EU. He's getting away with stuff. So, one could say he's a competent evil dictator. He's very good at being an evil dictator. Matthew sees only the good in people, says somebody. This is a Mathieu Hubert. Apart from Nigel or righties, ain't that always the case? The Be Kind Brigade really don't have much kindness or affection for those on the right wing of politics. They have a special kind of hatred for us. OK, let's do a call now and speak to Mike, who is in Warwickshire. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm all right, tired. I'm so tired, I think I'm a bit delirious.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Yeah, I think what we should do is we should abolish the House of Commons, create a new political system where everybody in Europe can vote to decide what we do in this country. And in that way round, it will finally have its way, because my understanding is that when I vote for an MP, that MP's job is to benefit me, my family, and my area. However, they seem more intent in worrying about people from other countries. Now, we've got people on the streets living rough who were born here. We have young families that have been evicted and can't get anywhere to live, and many other things that I could list. And they seem to not take priority over making sure that somebody that comes here illegally can have all the medical care they want and everything else. Now, it's so much so that you've got to bear in mind that this government is now paying the private medical companies money to deal with these people. And that's why, despite the fact that I pay money towards a private medical health care, it took longer for me to get an operation because they admitted they're swamped.
Yeah. Do you know, I've got a friend who works in a particular screening department of the NHS, and she says to me she sees files coming in over a desk which is sort of put to the top of the pile from a particular hotel. And it burns, it boils my blood. It's ridiculous that we're beatifying people who are criminals. They're breaking into the country illegally, and this whole idea they're sort of lovely, cuddly, vulnerable men is frankly emasculating some pretty intrepid characters who know how to do deals with some fairly ruthless people traffickers who've managed to cross multiple countries and a couple of continents in order to then get in a boat to come here. They're not sort of poor, weak, or coochie little thing, I'm so sorry you're escaping. They're not. These people are blimmin' hardened.
Why do we bother voting people into the Houses of Parliament, especially this government, where what they then do is prioritise everybody else from anywhere else in the world over its own people?
I totally agree.
And the chap you had on before who was saying about, but we have to be seen to be compassionate. Well, where's his compassion for the person sleeping rough last night? Where's his compassion for the young child who's 14 years old, who's been ferried around in rape gangs? Where's his compassion for the 14-year-old child who's living rough on the streets because his parents don't treat them particularly well? And where's his passion for the person who can't get their cancer treatment because they're busy treating
It's funny, isn't it? Because the left have now coined this new phrase, performative cruelty. It's like, no, what you've got is performative, fake compassion, fake news compassion. Look, someone gave me a button. Chris, the producer, gave me a button. This was a big mistake by Chris to have given me this, because I'm going to play with this for the rest of the show. So do you know what I say to all of that?
Fake news.
Love it! Thank you ever so much. Mike in Warwickshire. OK, let's do a couple of messages and take another break. Every time Rachel and the Labour Party walks into the House, the speaker should play Spanish Flea by Herb Albert. Does anyone know what Spanish Flea by Herb Albert is? I'm afraid that's totally lost on me. I've never heard of that, and I don't understand the reference point. I am so sorry. But hopefully someone out there laughed and said, that's brilliant, what a funny comment. So basically, the Liberals and the Labour government are following immigration policies that they, along with everyone else, know are putting British people, and especially women and girls, into a dangerous environment when they should be looking after the British people's safety first. Just you wait until we have mass casualty events. Because they're in train. Sorry to, really bring down the tone of the show, and we started off being a little bit blasé and comical. But in all seriousness, we know that some of the people who have broken into the country illegally are connected to terror organisations. If you follow these sorts of things closely, as I do, it is suspected almost every town and city by now has a terror cell. And that the big fear is that at some point, the ultimate plan for Al-Qaeda is to coordinate multiple mass casualty events around Europe and in America. And did you know that it's interesting? There's now this code word, Operation Plato, that the police use when they think there's going to be a mass casualty event. They said it's when it was the attack on the synagogue in Manchester. It was also the instruction given with the train stabbing on its way to Peterborough. And you know, when the synagogue was attacked in Manchester, all of the synagogues in America and across France shut down because they thought this was the beginning of the coordinated attack. So it's not a case of me inventing this stuff, or is it going to happen? Unfortunately, I think we're rather in the territory of when it is going to happen. And so come that day, there will be blood on the hands of the people who have overseen willfully open borders, allowing multiple unvetted people from terror hotspots who hate the West into our country. And not only that, putting them up in hotels, feeding them, not monitoring them, giving them free passage to roam around and do as they wish, even if it's caused us great harm. It is very sinister. It is very disturbing. OK, on that cheerful note, let's take a short break now. But when we come back, well, let's cheer ourselves up, shall we, by talking about the blimmin' budget. That's after this.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is apparently the track Spanish Flea, that I had never heard of, that would make great entry music for Rachel Reeves as she walks into the House of Commons. I don't think that's quite the right tone, in my opinion. I think it should be more like that sort of horrible drone sound, the doom and gloom noise that they use in sort of horror movies and stuff like that. Because that just sounds far too jolly and lackadaisical, and there's anything but when it comes to this budget. Let's talk about just that, shall we? Because I'm joined by the brilliant Laurie Laird, who's an economist, and James Nation, OBE, who's former head of policy for Rishi Sunak. James, by the way, you and that man who you worked for, I got a bone to pick.
Oh, gosh.
Why did you call that blimmin' election? Why did you do it? It was madness. Now look what's happened.
Well, he was right, wasn't he, on the economy? But,
Well, exactly.
but yeah, I know.
Why didn't he just carry on? He should have stuck it out, sent people in aeroplanes to Rwanda, dealt with our economic problems, and not just passed the buck to these psychopaths.
Listen, what I can just say when I think back to that time is we just wanted to try and force an argument and a bit of a contrast with the Labour Party. And I think, in fairness, you saw that over the election campaign. It didn't help with the result. I totally get that. But in terms of the dividing lines that were drawn, particularly on tax policy, I think you've seen that play out over this last
I know,
week.
but that's great. I love the fact that you've been proven right that the Labour Party are evil,
Yeah.
but that's at the expense of all of us, my friend.
I know.
Sunak should be still sitting in number 10. Bring him back.
I'll quote that. There we go.
I miss him. I miss the bones
That's
of
a
that man.
development. That is a development for this morning.
I miss the bones of that man. Blimmin' heck. When I sort of detail all the evil, wicked things, I've started to compile a list of all the... It's crazy. Laurie, look, before... talking to us as an economist, talk to us as an American as well, because when you look at things going on in the United Kingdom, putting people in prison for things they've put on social media, lying to the country about there being a black hole when there isn't in order to grab loads of taxes to pay on welfare when we know that we've got a big problem with welfare, basically to appease her backbenchers, lying about what happened in Southport as well, giving the Chagos Islands away, attacking our farmers so we basically only have 6 days of food left in the country, pouring cement down the oil wells and saying there can't be any exploratory drilling, so by 2030 the lights may go out. I mean, it's crazy. If I look at that list of all the mad things that this government has done, it sounds like some sort of regime from Haiti.
Well, you said as an American, I wouldn't say that American policy right now is all that well joined up either. I think there are some inconsistencies there as well. But I think let's go back to talking about the dying days of Rishi Sunak's government, the Conservative government. No, but I think there are parallels here with this current government. Sorry to say that.
No.
But no, I think both governments are being racked by political expediency. You know, I don't think either the last Tory government toward the end or this government seems to have the luxury, or seems to think it has the luxury, of thinking longer term. Decisions are made on the fly. Decisions are made in the very short term. What did we hear from Rachel Reeves for the past year? Growth. I will stop at nothing in my pursuit of growth. I think everybody, once people understand what growth is, I think everybody can agree that that sounds like a pretty good thing. But the ways that she has chosen to affect growth have not been what the economy's needed, and I think that was happening at the dying days of the Conservative government as well. It felt a little bit more like survival than a longer-term plan.
Look, what I'd just say,
so
really...
I'm trying to tread very carefully.
No. You make a good point, because I think the reflection would be, listen, when you are weak politically, which, by the way, is extraordinary for me to say, because I can tell you for a fact, having been there, I would have loved Labour's majority right now. But when you are weak politically, you index towards your comfort zone. And the key audience who were satisfied this week let's see what happens when they go back and talk to their constituents, Labour MPs. And that goes to your point, right? It is short-term political survival. This was a budget which it has a time horizon with the next May local elections in mind and the fear of a possible and plausible challenge to Keir Starmer's authority. So what do you do when you're in that scenario? You do a Labour budget for Labour values, just as I, dying days, might have done a Conservative budget for Conservative values. You get into that kind of political
At the nub of all this, though, today is the fact that they've done a Labour budget for the backbenchers. Rachel Reeves has decided she wants to save her own skin. It may look like it was a bad decision because she's been exposed as lying. I mean, that to me is extraordinary for the Chancellor to stand up in the morning in a press conference and say to the nation, the justification for me coming after your money for more taxes is because there's a girt black hole in the economy, which doesn't exist. An absolute fabrication is utterly breathtaking.
Her communication skills, I think, have been found wanting. And I do think it will be difficult for her to gather credibility to stay in this job much longer. I'd love to hear what you think about this, but this is a big, important job. Communicate at a difficult time economically. Communication is crucial here. It's fine that she's not a great communicator, but I think the person who's in number 11, who is in front of the cameras a couple of times a week, has to be able to communicate more clearly. In terms of economics, does she understand what needs to be done and is constrained by the political expediency that we discussed? That seems to be an open question. The original sin was the manifesto. We will not raise taxes on 2/3 of the tax base. That's the original sin.
But it turns out basically she didn't need to. That's the point of all of this. She didn't need to put up taxes. There was no black hole. She didn't need to suddenly lift the 2-child benefit cap. It isn't just a case of being feckless and reckless with the economy, which they clearly are being. And it's interesting that Sir Keir Starmer appointed somebody from the IMF and the former Deputy Governor of the Bank of England to be his economics advisor in number 10 Downing Street. And I can imagine that person wouldn't be saying,
she's
lie about a black hole.
Quiet,
well, but
welfare.
She's a crossbench peer. She is not to do that job as economic advisor to the Prime Minister. You need to be a political special advisor because you need to have good political instincts. And this is why. So if I come into what we've seen in recent weeks, this wobble over whether or not they would breach the manifesto and go for an increase in income tax, I actually think, and I'll come back to the forecast in a moment and the kind of fibs and deceit or whatever, but I think on income tax, I believe that there actually were a few sort of technocrats around the Prime Minister and the Chancellor who were actually talking them into, increase income tax because it's a credible thing to do with markets. You'll be raising taxes next year. That will make it easier for the Bank of England. But then they look over the precipice in a week where there's also the briefing against Wes Streeting and think, hang on, can we really be the first government to put up the basic rate of income tax since 1975? And I think they just thought, no chance. But just really quickly, because I think we've got to nail this on the numbers. So there are 2 phases to the OBR forecast really quickly, quite technical. There's the pre-measures phase, which is basically when the OBR do all their stuff on the economy, don't factor in any government policy, and then there's the post-measures. Now, Rachel Reeves will have known the sum total of all of their adjustments to the forecast on the 31st of October, Halloween. And that is when she will have been told, actually, you're still in the black. You're in the black by 4.2 billion.
Yeah,
so
you're doing all right.
You're doing all right now.
Put up taxes.
So this is where, because I think just to be really precise about this, so she still at that moment would have needed to have done some policy action, right? Because she will have needed to have left more than the 9.9 she left last time.
Yeah, she got lucky.
And she needed to have funded her U-turns. But the thing that I think we need to go for here is the black hole. There was no sort of, really, the sort of net black hole as a result of changes the OBR made was only like 6 billion or so. So this briefing around it being 30, 20, and then keeping on referring to that after Halloween in the speech that you did and in your comments to other broadcast outfits, I think that's the bit where there are questions today.
For me, the problem is a lot of people, if this was another minister lying about a different portfolio, as wantonly as she has done, there would be a massive outpouring of outrage. If the foreign minister turned around and said, let's think of a example from history. Oh, this country's got weapons of mass destruction. Let's go start a war with them. No. Then you would have a huge outcry, OK? It's not OK to lie about... It's like me going, Laurie, can you give me a tenner? Because I really can't afford a sandwich. I'm so hungry. I've got no money whatsoever. I haven't eaten for 2 days. Just give me a tenner and I'll go down Pret. And say, oh my gosh, Alex, I can't watch you wasting away in the corner of the studio there. Here's 10 quid. And I get it. And I'm like, all right, James, do you want this tenner? It is not okay. This is the country's finances. This is money that's taken off my salary, your salary. This is money that is not being spent on plugging a black hole. It's not being spent on, I don't know what the money's being spent on other than lifting the 2-child benefit cap, because we didn't hear about that in the budget. It was extraordinary about the fact that normally in a budget it goes, here's the mood music, right, we're going to buy an aircraft carrier, we're going to get a few new hospitals built. There was none of that. It's just one giant lie.
I think this is a really good point. You talked about the possibility. It looks like we were creeping up toward an income tax raise. I think the country was ready for that. I've covered economics in a lot of places. I have never lived somewhere where the budget is an all-day event coverage, from morning till night. I think it's incredibly lovely and quaint how engaged people are in the construction of fiscal policy here. I think it's brilliant, and I think. Extend that a little bit, I think the electorate is smart enough to know something's got to give. And if we want these things that we tell pollsters we want, we may have to pay a little bit more. I think the country was probably there. Taxing people can be growth friendly if you use that money to build things that become more productive. But to do it to fund above inflation rises in pensions, you're not putting a whole lot of productivity into the economy. So I think you could have raised rates.
I love the fact you say that the budget was an all-day event. Last time I checked, it has been going on for 6 blimmin' months.
Yeah.
The Treasury were briefing out these policies and using us as a national focus
We've been talking about it, you're right, for 6 months.
But just quickly, so I think there are a few points that I'd sort of gently push back on slightly. So I think, the tax...
I'm a big girl, you can be...
No.
You're so polite,
so
James.
polite. Okay.
James Nation OBE.
Oh, gosh, that's going to... Yeah, my friends are going to love that.
So, James...
No, don't know. Yeah. Well, look, the tax burden is already, as a share of GDP, at its highest since the Second World War. And I actually am strongly of the view if they'd increased the basic rate of income tax in particular, that would have been curtains politically.
Do you think so?
I just think that is so totemic a tax pledge. Now, we can argue the toss over whether they breached the manifesto anyway, and I would argue they have by doing the threshold freeze extension. But I do think that would have been really, really tough. Where I do think there's still an issue with public opinion is I still see in the polling that I look at that the public are not quite there yet on public spending, in fairness. They still lionise investment in the NHS, by and large. And I think we need to get to this point where we realise, hang on, is it sustainable that we're spending the equivalent of the whole GDP of Portugal on the health service? Is what's happening with our welfare state, actually right or not, given what's happening with benefits spending? That's what needs to happen, because, and I hope it does happen now, because you've had unequivocally a Labour budget, which is, big increases in welfare, big increases in tax, big increases in spend. Let's see how the public react to that.
Let's see how they react, indeed, because coming up after the break, we're going to ask them, and they can speak directly to you and let you know. If you want to give me a call, it's 0344 499 1000. Okay, taking a short break, and then we're going to be hearing from some of you just after.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Two people sit together and just look natter. I love it. Oh my God, I feel like there's some sort of budding romance going on in the corner of this studio. I'm sorry if you've got other halves.
So much better.
You can
cut so much better.
You can honestly, you can
try harder, darling.
You've got me. You're throwing me off this morning.
Honestly, you could cut the sexual tension in this studio with a knife. I tell you.
You know what it's like when people start talking about bond yields. I mean, that is a
just gets me going.
Yeah. Look at them. Oh my gosh. Honestly, can I come to your wedding? I really would. That'll be one heck of an event, won't it? Yeah. Oh, what are you going to have, like,
Spicy after dinner speech for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And Rachel Reeves officiating.
Rachel Reeves officiating, exactly. Oh. And then, like, spreadsheets.
Your
broken
like promises brought us together.
Oh my goodness. You guys,
so much hope for the future.
Now, I've noticed that there's two words actually that the Labour Party have really enjoyed saying to deflect all responsibility away from everything. Whatever the subject is, whatever question is asked, the answer is always Liz Truss. They can't leave her name out of their mouths, can they? Oh, well, Liz Truss, that catastrophe, she crashed the economy, blah, 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 Liz Truss, Liz Truss, Liz Truss. But is it possible that Rachel Reeves might do the same?
You guys based on that one. You guys based on that one.
So cute.
I suspect not. I think that she has a slightly better she's learned from that event. People across the world have learned from the Liz Truss moment. It's a buzzword in the U.S. People talk about the Liz Truss moment.
They like her over in the U.S.
She's resurrected her career reasonably well over there. But I think that was a scarring experience for the UK and for other places. And I think Rachel Reeves has an understanding of she has to borrow money. And borrowers have a squeeze point. So there's only so much you can borrow before the people who are lending to you, that's the bond market essentially, say, wait a second, we'll keep lending to you, but we're going to need a much, much higher payoff because you've become risky.
That's the point.
So let's go back to your tenner. Say I ask you for a tenner to get a sandwich because I haven't eaten. You'll probably lend me a tenner. But if I say I'm really hungry and I need $1 million, you're probably going to want a higher rate of interest for that loan, right?
That's one expensive sandwich, Laurie, unless you're very greedy.
I'm really hungry. But do you see what I mean? The more you borrow, the riskier you are, and so whoever is lending to you is going to demand a higher payoff. I think we all learned that lesson here. Now, the bond markets, and we measure their sentiment by the interest rate on what's called gilts. Bond markets were pretty gentle to this budget. I was really surprised about that. Yeah, we've got a little bit more fiscal headroom, we've got a little bit more of a cushion, but that cushion's at the smallest amount that I think the markets thought was acceptable. Add in there that part of this cushion is made up of almost $5 billion of efficiency savings.
Got to come back to that.
Yeah, we hear this all the time. Does it ever, you'll know better than I do, does it ever come to be? It's a catch-all, let's just throw something in there. There's not that much space in here, plus all of these spending cuts, sorry, I'm really winding up here, all these spending cuts are laid in Parliament. Will we actually see them?
Totally.
Oh, she don't like austerity, does she?
No, so that's. But I think this is where we need to. So, to your question directly on Liz Truss, I think you're right. What the Liz Truss episode did is it put us effectively on the naughty step in terms of the risk premium that we have on our debt, which means that investors are looking hard for credibility in the decisions which UK politicians make. And I tell you this: if we look at the budget this week and believe that there will be £26 billion worth of tax rises just before a general election, that departmental spending will be held flat, then maybe viewers should should vote on a name change for me if that happens, because I just think both of those things are really hard to see. And this is, I think, what you could see in terms of a market reaction, because I don't think anyone in the Labour Party or the Labour cabinet believes that those spending cuts will ever happen. We've just had an example this week of special educational needs, which was something that was pushed onto central government as a result of a decision on Wednesday, and then Bridget Phillipson comes out and says, no, that's not going to impact schools or any other hard decisions.
Spell it out for an Egypt like me, which is, are you suggesting then that down the line, when it suddenly realises that they ain't going to make any savings, we desperately need to cut the welfare state, she's done the opposite, that there is still doom ahead, that things could get pretty ugly?
Yeah, I don't think it will be you'll have a view on this as well, I don't think it will be a sort of IMF 1970s style moment.
That's fanciful.
It will just be that our debt, our borrowing costs are priced higher because people look at it and think, we still don't really believe that UK politicians have grasped the nettle here and are taking a hard decision.
So when Nigel Farage predicts that they could be out by 2027 because they will have essentially left the economy in tatters, albeit beholden to their backbenchers, you think that's... Hold on, I've got my button here. You think that's...
Listen, you're being rude.
It's not going to happen.
I think this...
being rude. You're fake news.
That was a long one.
There's doom and gloom, the economies are going to hell in a handbasket. That's not going to happen.
Okay.
I think the bigger risk is that we just are in this stagnant environment. There was nothing in this budget that is a growth killer. There's just nothing in this budget that you can see that would affect growth down the line.
It felt like a bit of a nothing budget to me. Let's bring in a caller now. Because as newlyweds, you might enjoy having a menage a trois. I don't know. Let's speak to Hans, who's in Derbyshire.
As long as they do interest rates, as long as they like spreadsheets.
Exactly. Oh, I want to see what goes on between your spreadsheets. Hans, how are you?
I'm fine, and you, Alex?
Great, I'm very, very well. Right, what is your question, assuming it's about the economy, or maybe it's going to be about something completely different? You're going to catch us all off guard.
Oh, it's about the budget.
Go for it.
What I want to know is that Rachel Reeves has misrepresented what finances were like in this country.
Yeah, to the lie, basically. The lie about the black hole.
Yeah, she lied about the black hole that she knew perfectly well it wasn't 22 billion, and she knew that she was in excess. So she's used the excuse of we've got to get this black hole sorted and raised all our taxes. Why has she not been arrested for fraud?
Oh, arrested for fraud! I love it. The listeners here, they take no prisoners. But how shocking is this as economists when you heard about what happened? I look at it from a political point of view, and I just think it is absolutely wild that Boris Johnson falls on his sword for eating cake, which frankly I thought was just a rubbish excuse to get rid of him. I don't care whether or not, 1 minute he's in this office at a certain time and he's allowed to be there, then the next minute he's in a few minutes later eating some cake and that's breaking the law. Oh, you must go. This woman has stood there and said, plain-faced to the country, there's a black hole, and there was not. That's shocking to me.
Look,
or is this just sort of normal? Is it like,
this is the thing.
Read that particular bit on the spreadsheet wrong?
There's bits that are normal and there's bits that are not. So this is where I'm a bit sad to say it is usually chaos on the inside, particularly with a budget of this magnitude. So I just want to pause for a second and just the pressure that Starmer and Reeves were under for this budget, and I think is extraordinary. And the gap that we had in terms of this long run-up to the 26th of November meant, I think, that at the very least, all of these briefings got completely out of control. Now, listen, what normally happens, because I've been there, you do normally do a bit of kite flying. You do normally try and do a bit of conditioning, because you want to try and get, the press in particular into a good place on the day. That's not new. But I think what we saw around different pitches being rolled, different budgets getting trailed to the one that we saw, I do think people would be forgiven for feeling a bit grumpy about that.
So when she that morning did a press conference and said there is a massive black hole, it's not going to be very easy for the country, that it was a mistake, that she actually believed what was coming out of her mouth?
No. I think, the most charitable way I can put it is I genuinely think she did not quite know what she wanted to do. Like, loads of cooks involved. I'm just giving you a case the other way. Given my background, it'd be easy to say, yeah, we've got her nailed, but I can just see a bit of chaos behind this.
But that press conference was the 4th of November, right? The one time for the breakfast shows. Would somebody have said, listen, ma'am, I don't think this is a very
They should have
good
done.
idea.
They should have done, or she should have thought about it, of course. But I just
Because
think
I can't think of anyone.
I just think they've been swallowed by just this absolute. We are so on the back foot. This is so all-consuming, and it just goes from crisis to crisis, basically.
Do they have to be this defensive? Could they have defied? You know, we look at the majority and think, "What on earth are you doing? You're so far away from an election." Could they have defied the backbenchers?
Well, or they could have just been professional about it and been like, do you know what? Actually, been transparent about the forecast. Actually, they could have been. It's better. Actually, it's better as a result of some of the decisions we've taken in this first year. I mean, I disagree with that, but you see what I mean. And then, as a result, yes, we are going to have to take some action because we want to do these measures. But there was no need to kind of whip up the narrative around the black hole. That is where I do agree.
Guys, let's go back to Hans on this. We've only got under a minute now, Hans. But what are your thoughts? Do you think she's just a barefaced liar or a fool?
Definitely a barefaced liar. Because if she's a fool, then what's she doing in the job?
Well, do you know what? I think she's a barefaced liar, quite frankly. I just don't understand how, if that is your portfolio, that is your responsibility, you stand up and go, there is a black hole, when you've been told there's not a black hole. And I'm sorry, if you weren't sure on the day, pick up the blimmin' phone. Otherwise, Rachel, I'm going to accuse you of...
Such fake news.
Hey. Thank you ever so much to Laurie and to James. Now go off and have a lovely date. I can recommend a gorgeous little French tapas restaurant just by Borough Market called Camille. I think you'll have a very romantic time there. You're not going.
All awkward, was it?
I know. I love the fact he's turning the same colour as Laurie's jumper. Right, don't you go anywhere. There's still an hour more of fun to come.
Fake news.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello you're there, welcome back. I'm having so much fun this morning. I was nodding off. I'd hit the wall at around, I don't know, like 11 o'clock-ish. I'd been sort of snaffling back as much milky coffee as I can because A, I'm super hungry and it's the chewiest thing on floor 17, and B, I kind of need the caffeine to keep me awake. It's been a bit of a slog of a week. And then these two, they've gone now, but weren't they great fun? I really enjoyed their company. And I'm still looking at the picture of the boat disguised as an island, which is utterly brilliant. Right, let's do some of your messages and voice notes before we kick off with our next segment. Again, someone has decided they want to recommend a tune for Rachel Reeves entering Parliament, and Techop's going to love this because I'm sure that Techop is a Trekkie. He says a tune for Reeves, the Imperial March from Star Wars. Oh, Star Wars, Star Trek, different things, right? Sorry, Techop. Look, I'm not one of the... I don't really watch things on spaceships. I do like UFOs, though. If you want a backing track for Rachel to walk into, I didn't ask for this, but apparently that's what we're doing now. What about the music played at the end of every Benny Hill show? Do you know, someone somewhere is going to have to make the mega mix of Rachel Reeves versus, various remixes of songs. I honestly think it should be doom music. I don't find her funny. I don't think she's comical at all. She's, alongside Sir Keir Starmer, destroying this country at a rapid rate. Hi, Alex. I think the reason they're not going to stop the boats is simply the fact they want to stay in power and they know they cannot rely on the British people to do that, so they're importing voters. They also don't care that the taxpayer is not going to vote for them because the taxes are being given to an ever-growing amount of non-working voters. See, I disagree with that. First of all, I'm not sure these men in migrant hotels can vote. And also, look, I don't want to be judgmental, but I would kind of assume that when you have people who are, having multiple children and living off the state, I don't think they're always the most politically engaged. I don't think that they are the people most likely to vote. And also, next time round, they might be like, oh, well, I've already got what I needed from Labour. Probably not going to give me any more. Dave from Walthamstow says, if you're looking for a rocky outcrop where to build my fantasy detention centre, where nobody lives to put the illegal immigrants, I hate to tell you, that is what the EU have been doing for the past 30 years with the UK. Ha! Very true. Rob from Catford says, great show. If you want a welfare state, you can't have open borders. Exactly. If you want open borders, you need to get rid of the welfare state. You can't have both. That is absolutely true, because essentially what we're doing is just writing giant charity checks to anyone from a third world country who fancies moving here. And oh, do you know what time it is, by the way? I've been on air for 2 hours. I'm now in the final hour. This is the bit of the show where I'm no longer earning money. I'm doing it for the migrants. Way! This is the bit where the taxes kick in, and none of this money is anything that's going to go towards anything that's going to help me. So there you go. It's migrant o'clock. Let's do some voice notes now. Pete the Mole.
Good morning, Alex. I'd like to ask a question. Where would Rachel Reeves Thieves stand on this, right? Because she's told a pack of lies from the very start, and she said that there's this big black hole and we need to get extra money out of the taxpayers. Well, surely, right, in anybody's book, that's called deception and fraud, isn't it? I mean, if any of us were to do it, we'd get a visit from the police, we'd be arrested, and then we'd be charged. But so why is it okay for a government minister to do it, especially someone that's on the front bench? This is absolute disgrace. It's a disgrace, right? Even for the Labour Party, this is low, low, low. And they've now, well, you know what? They need to resign, a lot of them, because, right, this must be the most disgraceful government in UK history. And she had the nerve, and Keir Starmer had the nerve to stand there shouting at the opposition, the Tories, going, we've got a black hole to fill. It's whatever, the people opposite have left us. We've got to fill this hole. Well, there was no hole, was there? There was no hole.
Yeah, no, this is the thing. I totally agree. And look, between you and I, because he's not here anymore, James Nation comes off first because, like, you're right, she did lie. I'm like, why didn't you say that on air? Anyway, thank you from Pete the Mole. Let's listen now to Alan.
Morning, Al. Alan from Swansea. Yeah. Excuse my croaky voice, I've got man flu in my ear. Right, this government is the worst in history. But as you're saying, are they doing it on purpose? Because they couldn't be that stupid, surely. I think they're doing everything in plain sight for people to say, oh, they're just incompetent. No, this is all planned. From the open borders. What's happened to Smash the Gangs? That's gone quiet now, isn't it? this ridiculous chancellor with his ridiculous budget killing the country. As you say, selling all our assets off. This very dangerous place as this country is now under these traitors. And I don't use that word lightly, my dear. Get them out. Surely, if they renege on all their manifesto promises, you should be out. It should be a general election. You haven't done this. You haven't done it. It's catastrophic. Every month is a big scandal, isn't it? You know, the whole country is on its backside, and people are depressed. Reform is the only answer. I'm just going to keep going. Great show, my dear. Ta-ra.
Oh, I love the Swansea accent. That's a brilliant one as well. You got a brilliant Welsh accent on you, Al. For those who aren't familiar with Wales, there's a beautiful diversity of accents in Wales. There isn't just a Welsh accent, and that was a very Swansea one, and I enjoyed it immensely. A very sound place, Swansea. Lots of sound people live there. Let's now hear from Sandra.
Hi, Alex. It's Sandra from Essex. Absolutely, Reeves and Starmer should go, and any MP who knew the truth and said publicly when being interviewed on air that they had inherited a black hole. Thank you.
I agree with you. They should go. But the problem, this is the same people who lied about Southport, who threw people in prison for writing things on social media, when I firmly believe that Mr. International Law human rights extraordinaire himself knew full well he was essentially prejudicing the case by basically saying, oh, well, because these people put these things on social media, they caused riots. And then these people went to have court cases where they were told just plead guilty. Because I tell you what, if they hadn't pleaded guilty and there was a trial, none of those people would have ended up in prison. I'm telling you, it's true. So you honestly think that this government's going to resign because they're lying to our face? They know they're lying to our face. They don't care. That is the point. Let's have a listen now to Chris.
Morning, Alex. Enjoying the show. It's Chris from Epsom. Working class boy from Fulham. I agree with Dave. Getting rid of the hereditary lords was a major mistake because they were invested in the country.
There you go. Phil Dave just actually popped into the gallery at that exact moment in time. I think he queued that up himself. In fact, I think that's him in the stationery cupboard putting on a voice and pretending he's Chris from Epsom, just so somebody agrees with him. Oh, yes, good. Fake news indeed.
Fake news. Fake news. Fake news.
I love that button. Right, OK, let's move on to another story now, which is the fact that Nigel Farage has let out a barrage against Sir Keir Starmer's relationship with China. Now, we know that the Labour Party, well, they kept sending ministers over there in the first year. Ed Miliband can't wait to buy a whole slew of Lord knows what for his green agenda from Beijing, regardless of the fact they use human slave labour and basically have concentration camps where they're killing loads of Uyghurs. And now they're going to allow this mega super embassy to be built. Well, the Reform UK leader has warned Starmer against sucking up to Xi Jinping when the two men meet next year. Oh, yeah, I forgot that. Starmer's off for a blimmin' state visit, isn't he? Great idea. That's supposed to happen in January. And this follows the collapse of the trial against two suspected Chinese spies and an attempt by Beijing's agents to infiltrate Westminster. Oh, don't worry. Beijing's agents are basically running the country. They're in number 10. There's also an ongoing row over China's planned new mega embassy. Nigel Farage said it's all very sinister stuff. A tougher line with China is needed. We should genuinely view China as a threat to our economy. He said it's going to be difficult due to the UK's dependence on Chinese trade, but unlike some critics, the Reform boss reckons the PM should go and have it out with Xi. He said, I'd say, listen, mate, we had a treaty over Hong Kong. You've broken that. Why should we trust you? Well, why should we trust them indeed? Sir Keir has said China poses threats, but he wants trade to continue. And he said that on the same day that MI5 warned that Chinese spies are relentlessly targeting British politicians. Well, let's speak to Ingrid Sheard, who is Reform UK Deputy Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire. Welcome to the show, Ingrid. I don't believe we have met before. Lovely to be acquainted with you via the power of Zoom. How are you?
I'm great, thank you, and nice to meet you.
Now, let's talk about this. This government, when it comes to China, aren't just not taking a tough line on China. They seem to be going every 5 seconds with the begging bowl to Beijing to ask China to be part of building our critical infrastructure.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Nigel is right. We do need to have a hard-hitting stance against the sinister actions that basically come along with China. If you look at the past, where they had the Sino-British Joint Declaration in 1984, agreeing that Hong Kong would basically keep its autonomy. That's totally been destroyed. In 2020, China introduced a law that totally went against that and totally went against everything they said they would do. China can't be trusted at the end of the day. We need to be really careful with what we do going forward. And Nigel is absolutely right. We need to have a really hard-hitting stance and ensure that anything going forward, that we are in control of it. And we need to make sure that our British citizens come first. At the end of the day, if we don't, then, you know, it goes against everything that we're trying to accomplish. This government is starting to say that they're trying to put a cap on immigration. They're trying to get it under control. Well, this totally opens it up. I mean, at the end of the day, the British National Overseas Visa basically gives people, Chinese people, a right to come over here and work and study and live indefinitely. That we can't have that. What we need is control of it. We need to be able to say, look, okay, once you've been looked at and once we accept you into this country, that's fine. But it's on a minimum basis. It's on a 5-year working visa. If we're going to do it, we need to have control and we need to make sure that British citizens come first at all costs.
Is the difficulty not, though, that we need to take a pragmatic view on China? They already are heavily invested in our infrastructure when it comes to buying things that this country's economy might need. Frankly, they just undercut everybody else around the world. And also, you know, do we want to provoke them? Or should the line be really tough on China? Should we essentially cut off all ties?
Do you know what? Are we going to actually put our economy over our security here in the UK? Is that really the way forward? If this planned mega embassy goes ahead, there's so many questions that need to be answered around it. We would need to have really stringent scrutiny and we would need to have stringent ways of monitoring because the positioning of it is really dangerous to our security here in the UK. To the fact that they will be alongside communication links. I mean, we know China from the past. We know how stringent they are within their own country. Do we really want to bring that to the UK would be the question. So do we put economy over our security?
What if it crashed the economy?
Would it crash the economy?
China owns a lot of international debt, including ours, and various things that we are buying right now in order to, whatever it may be, put up phone lines, internet cables, you name it, could well be coming from China because it's so much cheaper than producing our own.
But is that actually a good thing? At the end of the day, is that a good thing? And does it have longevity? What sort of quality product do we actually get from China? It might be cheaper, but does that always make it better?
Well, that is a question, I suppose, that Reform UK are going to have to answer in the fullness of time. Ingrid, thank you ever so much for joining us. Let's take a call now from Matt in Cheshire. Hi, Matt.
Hi, good morning, Alex. The only reason we have what we constantly hear is a threat to national security from Russia and China is because of the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. They're the ones that have allowed these so-called threats to constantly be in our consciousness. And I go as far as to say that probably a bigger threat to national security than Russia or China is Keir Starmer's government. And I think a lot of British people would trust anybody over Keir Starmer and his government. And the pandering they've done to China and the way Trump responds to China, he basically has a reasonably amicable relationship with them. And when they sort of do something wrong, he calls them out and has a pretty heavy go at them. So there seems to be a bit of a respect there between Xi and Trump, whereas Starmer seems to spend most of his time on his knees like he does with everyone else.
I think you make a very fair point there. When it comes to trusting the government, I would imagine the vast majority of the audience fully sympathise with what you have to say. Thank you ever so much to Matt in Cheshire. We're going to take a short break now, but if you want to make like Matt and have a chit-chat with me, the number is 03444991000. It's your normal network rate. You can also send me a WhatsApp on that number. Leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. 8722 is the number if you'd rather text me. If you do that, you've got to write the word talk before your text. When I come back, it's going to be your calls and messages. Idea that she's some helpless girl and therefore she's not dangerous is for the birds.
What would Sadiq Khan know about public transport? He travels around in a 3-car motorcade.
He would have you believe that London is this crime-free nirvana where we can leave our front doors open when we go to do a bit of shopping. Well, of course, that's just drivel.
Why does she have to highlight all the so-called anxiety of the world? I listen to music to escape, to be happy.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's just...
Imagine her listing, you know, illegal immigration is rising.
I think music exists for 2 reasons, and I'm going to get myself cancelled here now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Calls and texts, that is what we're doing. We all now know just what massive liars this terrible Labour government are. But if there really was no black hole, then why didn't Jeremy Hunt and Rishi Sunak come out and defend the Tories and prove there was no £20 billion black hole? I can't think back to that time. I can't remember what their response was. I think they actually did sort of fight against it. I can't remember. Afternoon, Alex, the only black hole is in between Rachel Reeves' ears, says Rob. Do you know, the problem is, I think it's very convenient for people to think this government's useless. I think they're just wicked. Joe from Shrewsbury says, as the government obviously doesn't know the definition of a black hole, can we not dig one and chuck them all in it so they can see firsthand what one is? Maybe we can speak to Elon Musk and he'll send some sort of special SpaceX rocket into a vortex in another galaxy far, far away. Go back 5 years, says Mike in Whitney. Stop all legal migration. Just an email to the Passport and Visa Office. Get special forces to grab the boats, take them back to France, puncture them. What could the French or the ECHR do to us? The French wouldn't fight us. And any fine from the ECHR would be minuscule compared to the billions these criminals and judges have cost us. It would have taken a week. Well, this is the interesting thing. So Hungary is being fined by the EU because, you know, the top of the chain is always that blimmin' horrible bloc based over in Brussels. Hungary is being fined by the EU for not taking asylum seekers to the tune of 1 million euros a day, right, which is about £800,000. So that's, 350 odd million a year in order to not have all the migrants coming. I'm like, great, that's cheaper, as you said, than sticking them up in hotels, paying for them, paying all the legal fees when they try and evade deportation. 4 times they get to have a go again. I wish people would start adopting the phrase, which I'm trying to propagate everywhere, about the illegal immigration industrial complex. If you did an organogram of this, you've got terrorists making a load of money from fake documents and people trafficking, the Wagner mercenaries, you've got the leftist lawyers really getting a load of money out of this. I wouldn't be surprised if there are certain immigration lawyers in the country who have direct connections with the people traffickers. I really wouldn't be surprised. You've got the NGOs who make a load of cash money from this. You've got the hoteliers who are like, great, the governments, or, these sort of big companies like Serco who pay landlords this, and then another halfway house company who then takes HMOs and then gives them to Serco and takes the cut. There's a lot of people making a lot of money from this misery, and I think it's about time we started talking about it. Let's chat now to John, who is in Newcastle. Hi, John.
Hello. 1 or 2 points of view here. I just realised that what we read is £15.8 million is used by immigrants for taxis to a health centre or a doctor. 15.8 million is cost in this last year, which is absolutely amazing. And another point, I read some book there the other day that said in 1960, which is a few years off, it's 65 years off, whatever, there was 30 million people on this small island of Britain. But now we have 60 million on this small island.
Oh, that's an underestimate. I think we've probably got well over 70 at this point.
We have 68 million, actually.
Officially?
That's comparable, yes. 68 million from 30 million on a small island. And, and I've never blamed the French, and I'll tell you why. Well, Belgium helps out a little bit because it's just a small coastline towards England there. But the French problem is so different. The French, you see, don't give them a hotel. The French don't give them 3 square meals a day, £38 spending money a week, and nice and warm on days such as this in a hotel, whereas our own people in food banks, we've got 6 where I live, and maybe 7, I think. But the reality is we're second-class citizens in our own country. Yeah. And my point is, just my last point, is that I will never, ever vote, I never did vote Conservative. Labour, many years ago, but not now in the last few decades. And Liberals, well, they're just there for the middleman. And so, therefore, I have no faith in our politicians. And that Parliament, to me, is an absolute disgrace. And when you look at the upper house, I watched a little bit of it the other day because I'm not inclined to do so much on television, but on the political side. But the House of Lords, they get £350 each day. And for what I saw a few days ago, before Prime Minister's question time, which I did watch this time because of the situation, half of them looked as if they were asleep. Maybe they needed some injections put into them, to liven them up a bit. £350. And what I don't know, of course, is did they get expenses on top of that?
I think they probably do, yeah. I think they do.
Yeah, well,
I mean, what's interesting, when you're listing all of the parties that you wouldn't vote for, you didn't mention Reform UK, so I don't know whether you hold them in high esteem or not.
But I do.
But the problem they're going to face, talking about the upper chamber, is it's funny, isn't it? Every time people get to nominate peers, Nigel Farage doesn't get to do it. Oh, the Green Party have them. The Lib Dems have them.
He doesn't want it. He doesn't want an upper house.
Well, he might not want an upper house, but the problem is if you don't have peers in there, unless he sort of scraps it as soon as he gets into power, nothing's going to be able to pass through the House of Lords that he proposes.
Well, just a little while ago, the Labour Party, the Labour government got rid of some, peers that have been there for a long, long time. Hereditary peers, you could say. And they got rid of them. But what did they put in that place? Some Labour people again from the House of
Stooges.
Commons.
They flood the House of Lords with people that they think are going to vote in the way of them.
The whole
pointless.
structure's a farce.
Yeah, it's
the
a
whole
farce.
structure to me is a disgrace, and I'm ashamed, to be honest. I never thought that my decades have gone by, and when I was a young person, I was very proud of this country, and nowadays it's just down, down, and down. And I think the people of this country really want to wake up.
Well, I think the people in this country have woken up. Judging by the polling, they don't seem to want either of the legacy parties. John, I'm going to love you and leave you, my darling. Thank you ever so much. I love hearing the Geordie accent, and a proper one that was as well. Let's speak now to Chris, who's in Epsom. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Alex. Great show. And it was me that left you the voice message that I agree with Dave about the hereditary peers.
Yeah, what is it? I've got another message here. Sue in Nottingham says, I totally agree with Phil, Dave, regarding the abolition of hereditary peers, the worst thing for us and our democracy. They were brought up and educated as to what was expected of them in their role to balance and advise. What a disaster. If we also had an elected second chamber, when you think of what we have in the Commons now.
Oh, God forbid we get an elected second chamber. I don't know what we do with it, but that would be disastrous, especially the way that each Prime Minister that is, as he's leaving office, loads it with his
advisors, his hairdresser, his dog walker, exactly.
It's ridiculous. Now, two things on the budget, and then I want to talk about your friend, Sarah Adams.
Okay. I don't know Sarah, but I know who Sarah is. Okay, quickly, on the budget. Fire away.
On the budget, right. This year, we're spending $15 billion on illegal immigrants.
Yes.
But she's only mentioned in the budget $1.5 billion for the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the first one.
Right.
And the second one, I can tell you because I was involved in technology, and I can tell you that $1.8 billion for digital cards is a nonsense. It will cost more than that just for the data centres, and we haven't got the power to run them, and we haven't got the cabling to go to them. It's a complete nonsense.
Oh, does that mean we might not actually end up having to have them?
Well, they might start introducing them, but there's so much money got to be spent on infrastructure. Don't forget, we paid the wind farms $1.2 billion this year for electricity that they say that they produced that we couldn't take because they haven't built the interconnectors. The interconnector alone was estimated at $86 billion, and that was 2 years ago.
Oh, my goodness.
It gets worse and worse, Alex.
It does indeed. Now, you were going to talk to me about Sarah Adams. Let's explain to the listeners who Sarah Adams is. She's a former CIA agent. She's an expert on Benghazi in the Middle East. She advises the US government on matters to do with security. But these days, she runs a brilliant account investigating Al-Qaeda 2.0, who she says is thriving over in the Middle East, that bin Laden's son didn't ever get killed, that he's running Al-Qaeda 2.0. She's a very credible person, Sarah. This isn't sort of mad conspiracy theory. That Al-Qaeda are sitting there and they are making some pretty horrific plans for the West.
Yeah, the thing is that MI6 have been talking about it as well. The thing is that, I mean, she was at the sharp end. She was a targeter, so she was the one that everybody would bring the intel to her, all the chatter and everything, and she was a targeter. She would then send out a Delta Force or a SEAL team to deal with the issue. So she knows what she's talking about.
She knows the people involved. She's got all the right connections. She keeps a very beady eye on what is going on over there. And I have no reason to believe why she's making this stuff up.
No, and she says that the cells that have been smuggled in into this country and across Europe, sometime during December, there's a plan for these cells to create terror attacks, multiple terror attacks right across Europe.
Indeed. No, I know. I've written about this extensively on my Substack, and indeed she does actually raise the prospect that mass atrocities, coordinated mass atrocities, could take place next month. I blimmin' hope she's wrong on this. Of course, she doesn't necessarily know for certain, but It sends a shiver down my spine, and this government must be complicit, because if we think for 1 minute the intelligence agencies aren't saying to the government, you do realise some of these people coming over on boats wish us harm. Of course they're telling the government this. I do not understand why they don't declare this a national emergency and therefore give themselves the legislative power to do something about it. Chris, thank you ever so much. I think we've got just about enough time to squeeze in Brian in Cheshire. Hi, Brian.
Hello, Alex.
Hiya.
Great programme.
Oh, thanks. What's on your mind?
Yes,
What's on your mind?
Regarding Rachel Reeves coming into the House of Commons.
Right.
And, there is a great song, and it's from the early 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's by a guy called Dave Berry.
Right.
And it's called All I Need to Know About the Crying Game.
All I need to know about the crying game. Well, thank you for that, Brian. I can see TechOp is already, I don't know, scouring the libraries to find it for us, which hopefully we'll be able to play after the next break and envisage the grand entrance of our Chancellor into the House of Commons.
That would be wonderful, because she was crying at the House of Commons and she was crying at the Labour Party conference. So she's quite good at it.
She is, but I think if there was going to be a competition between who cries the most, I might win. Because I'm always crying.
I don't think so. I don't think so. You're a bit tougher than that.
Oh, I'm tough, but I'm also a right old
is,
softy. I can't look at them donkey adverts. Seriously, if that Brook Animal Charity comes on screen, I have to see one more sort of oozing, septic, pussy knee on a mule. It'll do my head in. I can't cope with it, Brian. Thank you so much for your call. Oh, do you want anything else?
Yes. It was regarding the asylum seekers travelling by taxi, 200, 300 miles. Well, what it is when they come into the country at the reception centre, they're always NHS doctors.
That's what I thought. There seem to be GPs who go and visit the actual asylum hotels.
Yeah, they will do, but they're still NHS doctors.
Yeah.
And for anybody to have treatment, you have to register with a doctor.
Yeah.
But you can only register with one doctor. You can't register with two.
Right. I mean, I don't know what these taxis were taking to these people for, because if you've got to go 100, 200 miles on a trip, it's not going to a GP, is it? It's going to have something more complex and specialised, one would imagine.
Well, they're going for dentists, they're going for GP appointments.
You don't have to go 100 miles to go see a dentist, surely.
Yeah, but from the reception centre, they could be moved anywhere in the country, the asylum seekers.
Oh, I see. So they've registered with a GP in one particular, place, part of it have been stuck in a hotel. Then they've been moved to another hotel, and then they've got... Either way, it's just a blimmin' farce. Brian, thank you for your call, my darling. We've got to go to an advert break now. When we come back... I don't know what we're doing. What are we doing, Chris, when we come back? We're going to have more calls and texts, in fact, when we come back. So keep them coming in. 03444 99 1000 is the number to send me a WhatsApp message, the number to register your interest if you'd like to have a chit-chat with me. You can also leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. If you'd rather send a text, it's 8722. Write the word talk before your message. Back after this.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back. We were stuck in the break then, apparently. I've never heard that. That's some sort of new broadcast jingo because we are getting a guest ready for a very interesting conversation on American stories. I asked Chris if we could do these because some of them are just absolutely balmy, but the guest is not yet ready. We're sort of like, I don't know, wiring things up, laying some fibre optic cables. But as we poise ourselves to speak to Jan Halper-Hayes, who's a political psychologist and former advisor to Donald Trump's transition team, let's have a few voice notes. Here's Hev.
Good morning, Alex, my dear. It's Hev from Kent. Yeah, it's all very well, everybody saying, oh, what does Nigel know about Russia and his links and all that? What about Starmer? Remember, he spent time over there educating himself. So what's that all about? You know, everybody's over-exaggerating the Farage thing. I mean, you know, just let's get a grip here.
Oh my goodness, Hev, I totally agree. I find it utterly wild that the BBC were going full Tonto over the fact that Nigel Farage may have said something in the school playground over 50 years ago. I said all sorts of weird things and did things that were probably regrettable when I was a kid, because that's what kids do. And yet, the BBC have never once reported or commented on the fact that our actual Prime Minister, right, when he was a youth, when he left university, he went and lived behind the Iron Curtain in a Czechoslovakian workers' camp being run by a Soviet spy. For crying out loud! He's now running the blimmin' country as with the communists during the Cold War. Surely that's worth a blimmin' mention. Oh, Hev, I totally agree. Well brought up. Let's have a listen now to Darren.
Morning, Alex. Darren from Suffolk. A couple of points. Why do we provide doctors for the people coming across the channel when the Labour Party insists that it's doctors, engineers, scientists coming across? Surely the doctors that are coming across could take care of the other people coming across. Funny that. And isn't it also funny that the French have now said they're going to go into the water just a few days after the Brits have been going over on holidays and vandalising the boats before the migrants get hold of the boats? Really funny, isn't it? I wonder if those people will get arrested when they return. That's another funny thing, isn't it?
Aye, very funny indeed. Well said, Darren. Here's Billy.
Hi, Alex. Great show and loving your passion. Just to say that did Keir Starmer not say they would put country before party? But obviously that doesn't apply to their jobs. They should both go and he should call a snap general election. Just my thoughts. Billy from Edinburgh.
Yeah, Billy, he says he puts country before party. The big question is which blimmin' country, because it ain't ours, is it? Oh, do you know what? I wish there was some sort of snap election. We can talk about it until the cows come home, but the power to call that lies in Labour's hands, and turkeys don't vote for Christmas. Plus, this unscrupulous lot in government, they just don't have a single shred of morality between them, do they? That's the problem. They're not going to call a general election, surely. I hope I'm wrong. On that. Let's have a little listen now to Mark.
Hi, Alex. This is Mark in Derby. Great show. Ringing you about Resign Reeves headline. Basically, if I worked in the markets or in the financial institutions and blatantly fed lies to those institutions in order to influence the markets, I will be committing a criminal offence. So what is the difference between that and Rachel Reeves lying to the great British population about the problems that we've got? And also, she has made so many mistakes and made so many lies now. I cannot honestly believe the woman is still in power. She needs to resign and hand it over to someone who knows what they're doing before we bankrupt this country. And you know, we just can't stand for this anymore. Keep up the good work. Keep fighting, Alex. Bye.
I mean, the question is, did she lie in front of Parliament? I need to go back and look at that budget speech, because if she reasserted the claim that there was this black hole, and it can be proven that she knew full well there wasn't a black hole, and yet she said in front of Parliament. There's one thing about lying to the nation, but lying in front of Parliament is something that could see her get the chop. So, you know, somebody somewhere must go and do their homework on that front. Let's quickly speak to Nick, who's in London. Hi, Nick.
Hello, Alex. Morning to you. You had a caller, a guest earlier,
who said the peers going hereditary peers is right because the hereditary peers have no mandate, no democratic mandate. Well, that's true, they don't. But similarly, the current government don't have a mandate for half of the things they are doing. They've broken their promise on this, they've done things that weren't in the manifesto, and so on and so forth. There's legion examples of these. So I would say that the current government doesn't have a democratic mandate at all, which comes back to the point of why it's important hereditary peers were there, because they were separate in dependent of any political party. They weren't there at anyone's whim, any political party's whim. And so they were able to take a broader picture.
Do you know, it's funny, I would never have anticipated when Phil Dave started banging on about bringing back hereditary peers that this was going to catch on so much. I laughed at him. Little did I know that this was a hill that various people were prepared to die on. But, you know, you're right, democracy. I mean, what is democracy? We lost it a long time ago. We lost it when we were in the EU because they basically took over supranationally the big decisions that were most important to this country. We left the EU and now we've lost it to the ECHR. Worse than that, we've lost it to these leftist judges in this country. People like Lord Hermer, right? He's not elected. He's the Attorney General, and I get the sneaking suspicion he's the one actually running the country. So, you know, the thing is now, I don't know what it is. We've given up as a country. Once upon a time, I feel like we would have gone out and fought for democracy. Now it's almost taken as a given that we don't get it anymore. It's shocking. Let's hope that times are going to change. Thank you ever so much, Nick. Let's speak to Carol, who's in Devon. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Alex. Lovely show.
Right, thank you. Now, what's on your mind?
Oh, this country is just going to pop. It really is. I mean, I think the only way we're going to get these people out of government is for everyone, the whole country, to go on strike for a full fortnight and see how they like that. Get them out of government quick.
Do you know, have we got the ability to be able to sort of call a national strike? Are we that coordinated? Do you reckon it could catch on?
Oh, I don't know. Well, it's better than fisticuffs, isn't it? I mean, they want knocking in on the head, all of them, because they just don't understand how we feel.
Oh, no, I think quite the contrary. I think they know exactly how we feel and they don't care anyway.
No, it is really, really bad. It is, honestly. I mean, I get up every morning and I watch your programme and I think, oh, what the hell's going to happen today? It's just so depressing. It's making everybody feel depressed.
Oh, well, thanks for cheering me up, Carol.
Self-employed for 40 years, worked all my life, never took a penny out of the government whatsoever. And when I retired, I had to go back to work for 7 years to make my pension up because what's his name, Brown, cut the pensions in half. So
Carol, like I always say, by the time I get to your age, love, having been self-employed and basically not having a pension, I'm under a motorway bridge with cats. I mean, it's going to be, seriously, by the time I'm a pensioner, we're going to have no money whatsoever left in the kitty. We're all going to be doomed. I'll be the only sort of, British person left on this island. I'm not looking forward to it. Carol, thank you ever so much for your call. Now, I'm delighted to say, ladies and gentlemen, that we lost Jan, actually, Halper Hayes, who's going to talk to us about the crazy stories coming out of America. But some might say that we have a cheeky little upgrade because after the break we're going to be joined by the one and only wonderful Greg Swenson. That's after this.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back to the show. We are waiting for Mr. Greg. Called up last minute. He's sort of having to, I don't know, turn his camera on and brush his beautiful brown locks, but hopefully we will get him very shortly because there's some really fun stories coming out of America. In fact, I'll give you a little sneak preview so you're ready for what we're going to be asking Greg about. First of all, there's this, so you know there's been these negotiations on whether there can be peace in Ukraine, and first of all the Kremlin seemed to write their idea of what that would look like and translate it into English, and then it was presented to Ukraine by the Americans, and rightly so, Ukraine and the coalition of the willing said, you must be joking. You're rewarding an aggressor. Ukraine then wrote something, sent it back to Russia. I can't imagine if it suits Ukraine, it's going to suit Putin. But then there's an extraordinary story in the Daily Mail, which is based on a report in the Wall Street Journal, which details how Donald Trump's team, including his son-in-law Jared Kushner and the special envoy Steve Witkoff, have been negotiating with Russia on how to bring their $2 trillion economy in from the cold. So basically, Trump's approach is, look, you can't beat him, so why not join him? Maybe you can negotiate with Putin, and actually trying to work with him is far better than trying to work against him. Now, what they're discussing is this idea that $300 billion of frozen Russian central bank assets that are currently in Europe could be used for joint US-Russian investment projects, a US-led reconstruction of Ukraine. It sounds rather like his ideas for Gaza as well. But then this is the mad bit. This is a bit that I'm like, what? Really? Apparently, there's also reportedly talks of pursuing a joint mission between SpaceX and Russia to get to Mars. Now, maybe this is a stroke of genius because, of course, we were embroiled for most of the last century in a Cold War, a space race with Russia. And so perhaps rather than say, let's try and fight each other over this, let's pool resources and do something great for humanity. Has he lost the plot, or is this actually a brilliant idea? I just don't know. Now, on top of all of this, there's been the ongoing attack on Venezuela. Apparently there's now been a secret phone call with the Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, who Donald Trump ain't a big fan of, I don't think. But there's been ongoing military action against suspected drug traffickers from Venezuela, where apparently, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said to people, gave intelligence analysts monitoring the boats supposedly conveying all the drugs the order to kill everybody on board. Talk about going for it. And then there has been a very interesting story from a journalist called Ryan Lizzer. Never heard of him. He's the ex-boyfriend of a former New York Magazine reporter, Olivia Nuzzi. Never heard of her either. But anyway, it goes on that she got a sketch artist to go and say, I'm going to do a cartoon of you to Donald Trump. And she was in his residence in Florida. And she overheard Donald Trump apparently saying something that is so extraordinary about who was behind his assassination attempt. It would leave the whole world agog. What might it have been? Greg joins us now. Let's start off with that final story. I think anybody, Greg, who thinks that Thomas Crook's did this alone. That weird little spotty, oikish schoolboy somehow got a gun, found a perfect shot, and, you know, tried to take out the American president all under his own steam. I find that quite far-fetched.
Yeah, it probably is. It is odd how they kind of buried a lot of information when it first happened, those first few months. And then, of course, you had the FBI director getting fired or resigning in shame. Good for her. And so I think, you know, look, there's a lot of questions still out there. And yeah, it would be a stretch to think that kid did it himself.
So that leaves a big question of who done it, who would be behind this, who might be. I mean, could it be an inside job? Could it be American interests themselves who wanted to see him gone? Could it be the military-industrial complex because he was about to do something, expose something? Jeffrey Epstein, Mossad, Iran. I mean, if you were to come up with a list, who are the candidates?
Well, it'd be a pretty long one. I mean, look, they tried everything in the 2 years prior to that, you know, with all the lawfare and the weaponization of the justice system. And, you know, they really, it's by any means necessary is basically the code for the party. So it wouldn't shock me, but you never know. And I'm not sure we ever will know because, you know, everything was sort of silenced pretty quickly. And look, I hope there's more information to come, but I'm not that optimistic.
Well, let's see what emerges from this, because there's been 3 parts of an expose, and there's a 4th part yet to come. So perhaps we're going to find out what Donald Trump said. But I surmise from what you've said that you would put the #1 candidate as an inside job from the deep state of America.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me, but we have to be a little careful on the source of the more recent gossip. What is this sort of story that's come out, you know, that you mentioned about the little bit of a triangle between the names I can't remember, Izzo, Nizzo, Lizzo. You know, it's a bit of a you know, there's a little bit of scar tissue there, to say the least. You know, ex-wife running around with or doing some kind of, you know, text relationship with RFK Jr. I mean, it's a little bit sleazy. So, and both of those characters were, you know, are sort of in the business of clickbait. So. It's a little bit
It could
suspicious.
just be right sensationalism in order to try and get a bit of cash money out of the system. OK, let's talk now about this, the approach that Donald Trump could well be making to actually sort of look at Russia and go, why are we fighting? Why are we enemies? We're both essentially Christendom. Shouldn't we be doing things together? Forget the Cold War, forget thinking of you as an adversary. Let's go to Mars together. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, the president doesn't think like a typical diplomat or even past presidents, right? So he's always thinking out of the box. He's looking at any angle, and also you have to keep in mind, you know, the backstory is always going to be the potential risk with China. And so anything he can do to keep Russia away from some kind of cozy relationship with China, I think that's important to sort of divide and conquer. And so, you know, I'm not surprised that he's reaching out. He'll do anything to stop the war. I mean, he just doesn't like body bags, right? And I mean, he's happy to use force if necessary, but he'll try to use every diplomatic path prior to that. And you saw that with Iran. You know, you've seen it with Iran on several occasions. You're seeing it in Venezuela right now, which I see. I heard you were speaking prior to coming on. So, you know, look, he will do anything possible prior to using force. And the last thing that we want is escalation with Russia. They have 4,500 nuclear warheads. You know, you surely don't want World War III here. They are weakened. He knows Putin is weakened, but Putin doesn't really care about the usual metrics that we all do and that the president does. The president's very anti-war. He doesn't like body bags. Putin doesn't seem to mind that at all. And so, you know, we're sort of dealing with something that's, you know, it's a very difficult task when, you know, you've got 250 or 300,000 dead Russian soldiers, and Putin doesn't seem to bother Putin. He'll keep that meat grinder going.
I mean, it seems astonishing to me that we have spent the half of the last century this is the West, regarding Russia as our greatest adversary, smoke and daggers, spying, space race, weapons of mass destruction, Cold War, Soviet spies. So for an American president to turn around and potentially suggest, I know, how about we forget all this adversary, let's work together on doing missions in galaxies far, far away, it's a pretty substantial volte-face, to say the least. Is it doable, or is this absolutely mad?
It's I don't know that it's mad, but and I'm not sure it's doable, but it's worked before. Remember, the only time they've really behaved well is when they were much more integrated with the West in the 90s. And this is, in spite of the Russian ruble crisis. And ultimately, it was really Putin that kind of changed the course for Russia. When they were part of the G8, they were much better behaved and getting the kinks